The idiot Lord marries 5 beautiful goddesses. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 26, I'm here to collect the debt. Inside the castle's office room, Alex stood in front of the table leaning on it, with the back of his hands resting on the table. Riya looked at Alex with a worried look, as it had been a long time since she stood there with a vacant, lifeless gaze that wanted to devour everything in front of her. Riya bit her lips and finally asked, "My lord, are you all right?" "Yes." Alex spoke with a heavy and angry tone that made Riya shudder. "My lord, are you angry about something?" "Angry? Ha 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 ha." Alex laughed, but he didn't want to say the reason for his anger, and it made her more worried. He can sense that Riya is angrier than anyone else. If it wasn't for the current situation, she would have cut him into pieces and fed him to the dogs. But Riya could feel an underlying burning anger in her voice as Alex laughed. "Angry? I've never been so angry like this." Gulp. Riya gulped at that. "Knock, knock. Your Majesty, Kadra would like to request an audience." "Oh. He's here," Alex said. "Riya, I'm going out for some fresh air. You can finish the task with the others," Alex said and walked over to the servant. "My lord, where are you going?" Riya asked. Alex stopped his steps and spoke with a gentle smile that didn't seem friendly. "I'm going to collect some debts while having a little fun, my lord. Let me accompany you." "No." Riya's entire body froze upon hearing Alex's cold voice. "Riya, you have another task to do." In front of a huge house that was in a deserted place and quite far from the city, a man wearing a black uniform and wearing a half mask knocked on the wall. The mask covered the man's face halfway, from his nose to his neck. "Who?" a man asked from inside. "I'm here to collect my debt," the man wearing a mask said. For a while no sound was heard and the world fell silent. Screech. With a metallic screech, the wooden door opened and a man with an ugly-looking face spoke. The man rubbed his nose and looked at the man who was observing him from head to toe and said, "From your appearance, I can tell that you certainly belong here. So, tell me, what debt are you talking about?" "I owe Larry," Alex said with a smile. The man was yawning as it was already late at night, but suddenly he woke up from his laziness and shouted, "What did you say?" "Do I owe Larry?" Alex replied calmly. "Son of a bitch, do you know whose name you are saying?" the man shouted. "I am fully aware of that." "Oh. Since you know that, then die," the man said and jumped on Alex. Crack. A subtle bone-crunching sound echoed in the darkness of the night. Alex stretched out his hands at the man's incoming attack with one hand and grabbed his neck with the other. Grabbing it with his right hand, he twisted his neck. After killing the guy, he threw the corpse to the side. As he moved forward, he suddenly stopped his steps and looked at the man in confusion. "He didn't die." "Hey, a system where my experience points level up and up. Host, do you want to experience killing ants now, eh? That pitiful guy is only a level 2 warrior while you have reached level 7. Nothing except the squire rank warrior will give experience now. Hey, isn't this cheating? Host, are you kidding me? If you're allowed to gain experience from a level as low as this, wouldn't you reach a level similar to overload rank by just killing moles and ants and gaining 5 experience points?" "Hey," Alex laughed bitterly and scratched his head in embarrassment. "Now that makes sense. If the system allowed us to collect experience by killing ants, wouldn't the world be this broken?" Alex walked towards the huge mansion that looked dark from the outside, but from the inside the place was quite colorful. It was a secret brothel created by one of the disgusting nobles to use others as playthings, and Alex came to find the man and make him pay his debt. As Alex walked towards it, he saw a large incinerator that was burning with huge flames. A man was sitting beside it and eating something. Alex unconsciously felt a chilling sensation running down his spine at that moment. "Something's wrong," Alex muttered. "Hey, what are you burning?" Alex asked. "The corpses of the girls who can no longer provide any services here." "Huh?" The man who answered unconsciously while he was lost in the food turned around to see a man dressed in black. Alex's eyes widened as he looked at the meat. He saw that it was a roasted finger that looked human. Alex gritted his teeth and his eyes turned blood red. Before the man could get up and do anything, he heard a sentence that froze his entire existence. "A bastard like you should be burned alive." With this sentence, he felt a heavy blow to his chest that sent him flying into the air and his body spun around and crashed into the incinerator. Boom. Crack. A cracking sound was heard and the incinerator exploded and flames exploded and a heart-wrenching scream was heard. The man screamed at the top of his lungs and shrieked as he was burned alive. There was no change in Alex's facial expression as he watched the man's inhuman torture. A disgusting and nauseating smell began to permeate the air as the man was burned alive. Alex stood there motionless as he watched the man die until the last moment and chuckled. Just because I act like a child, smiling and joking around, this world sees me as soft rice, what a bummer. Alex laughed a little and then his expression turned sharp. His red eyes glowed under the pitch darkness of the night, making him look like a bloodthirsty demon had come out of him. This will be the beginning of a story that will be written in blood and cannot be continued in ink. Alex grabbed the axe that was at the side and kicked the wooden door open with a loud bang. Chapter 27, For today, you can call me Night Reaper. Bang! With a loud bang, the old wooden door was blown into pieces and the entire colorful atmosphere inside the house fell silent. The music the women were playing and the singing and dancing on the stage immediately stopped and they took a step back as they saw someone blowing the door open. When they looked ahead, they saw a faint shadow entering and soon a man walked out of it. A man wearing very dark clothes that seemed to blend in with the darkness of the night, along with blood-red eyes, was walking slowly and holding an axe in his right hand that swung freely along with the movement of his body. The entire hall fell silent at the man's entrance. When Alex walked in he saw many people sitting at tables with wines and drinks while on the stage, many women in rather revealing clothes were entertaining them, causing the men to lose their senses. Some even salivated at the sight of the woman and many were drinking. The air seemed filled with unpleasant smells of smoke and wine. Really quite the atmosphere of a brothel, Alex muttered as he walked straight without waiting for anyone's response. Alex rolled his eyes and activated his mana sensor to search for the prey he came for. Spotting him, he looked straight at the stage where the women were standing. Seeing the man's gaze, the women shivered a little and hugged each other unconsciously. Alex smiled under her veil and walked towards the stage. The drunkard shouted as he sensed something was wrong. Who stopped the music and singing? Hey, why aren't you dancing? Haven't you gotten all your money? They were too drunk to understand the situation and were screaming like crazy. As Alex walked forward, someone suddenly grabbed his shoulder from behind. As Alex turned his head he was met with a pungent, rotten smell assaulting him as the man who was smoking blew air in Alex's face and said, "Son of a bitch, who the fuck are you? Why the fuck are you ruining the fun here?" Before the man could utter a few more curses, he felt a blow to his cheek and his body spun and rotated in the air a few times and crashed into the table. Alex wasted no time and gave the man a hard slap knocking him out. And he resumed his walk as he walked up to the stage, the women trembling and their bodies shaking as they saw Alex coming. "Why are you doing this?" the women present muttered after gathering courage. "Please don't kill us. We are," but before the women could finish their sentence, they heard a loud and authoritative voice. "Move." The women quickly moved to the side unconsciously upon hearing his words, as if their bodies were naturally following his command. "We'll talk after I finish my things here," Alex muttered as he found a door at the back of the stage and pushed it open. Click. Dot. Into a dimly lit room filled with pleasant aromas. A lady who looked to be in her 20s was lying on a bed, her eyes filled with tears. Her legs and hands were tied and she was brought here by force. Her family was in debt, but since they couldn't pay off the debt, the people dragged her away after beating her family and sold her to be used as a prostitute. A click was heard and a man with long black hair with a big smile walked in and seeing the girl's beautiful body, he laughed out loud. "Oh my god. Such good material." The man smiled as he walked over to her. The lady's body shook and she mumbled. The man pulled out the clothes that were stuffed in her mouth and asked, "What were you saying?" "Please don't do this, I beg you," the lady cried. "Please have mercy for God's sake." Ha ha ha. What a joke. "Don't worry, it will be a good session and you yourself will ask for more after a few rounds." The man laughed and hugged the lady. He held her chin and pulled it forcefully to his mouth. "No," the lady screamed, but it all fell on deaf ears. The man laughed cruelly and seemed to enjoy watching the girl act rudely. As her screams echoed around the room and the man was about to forcefully kiss her. Swish, bang. A small bang was heard and an axe appeared out of nowhere and hit the man's head, throwing him against the wall. Bang! The wall shook as the man's body slammed into the wall, and a huge axe was stuck in his head and blood flowed from the grotesque corpse and formed a puddle. The woman's leg gave way, and she fell to the ground with her eyes full of shock and horror. She wanted to scream but her voice got stuck in her throat, and no matter how hard she tried, it wouldn't come out. No, it was as if her voice refused to come out for a fear of being killed by the unknown entity. She heard a subtle clicking sound and looked towards the door to see a small axe-shaped hole appearing in it, and as the door opened a silhouette appeared and asked her, "Are you okay?" She tried to speak but couldn't, so in the end she just nodded. The man walked past her, pulled an axe out of the man's head and ripped his clothes, wiping the blood off with it. "Miss, tell me, are there many people like you who are forced to do this?" Alex asked in a soft tone that hid her underlying anger. "I think many are dragged here like this. Those who were able to adapt eventually accepted their fate, and those who couldn't adapt were used to death and were either thrown away or burned." The lady spoke and sobbed. Alex took a deep breath. "Miss, don't worry, this nightmare will soon be over. I promise. Miss, please make sure you don't leave this room. I will come to get you after finishing a task," Alex said and was about to leave. "Sir, what is your name?" the lady asked after muttering her anger. "I have many names, but for today, you can call me Night Reaper, the one who will reap the darkness that prevails here," Alex said with a small cruel smile under her veil. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 28. I'm here to take you to my wife. Alex walked down the narrow hallway only to stop when he found a target to kill. The place was absolutely disgusting. He didn't dislike brothels, nor did he have the authority to stop that kind of thing, but this place was filled with scum and pests that were begging to be killed. From the outside, it looks like a simple place for a man to meet up and drink with his mates and enjoy himself like a public pub. But inside, horrendous deeds were committed. Girls are kidnapped here and used as prostitutes with or without their permission. Only VIPs and nobles are allowed access to this place, who came to enjoy it as they please and treat the girls like trash and specks of dust. They should be happy that I was the one who came here, otherwise, if Raya were to step foot in here, I'm afraid I might cut up their stuff and cut into pieces whoever has anything to do with managing the place," Alex muttered, wiping the sweat from his forehead. Alex finally stood in front of the door where that bastard was. Besides, that bastard was quite enjoying the moment. Alex didn't wait for the bastard to finish and kicked the door. The door broke and flew through the air, crashing into the wall. "Who the fuck?" Screams were heard as Alex walked in, where he saw a naked woman and a naked man screaming, and he stood up and wrapped a sheet around her. She looked at the men with a venomous look. "Hey, who are you and how did you get into the place?" the woman asked in a threatening tone. Alex didn't say anything and his image blurred. He appeared behind the woman and punched her in the neck, knocking her down. Slap! The sound of a loud slap echoes throughout the room. The man was still in a drunken state and didn't realize what was happening, but he came to his senses after receiving a slap from Alex. "Bastard, you son of a bitch dared to ruin my intimate session. I'm going to kill you," the man shouted. "Where the hell are all of you idiots? Kill this man." Hearing the man's order, 4 assassins appeared and surrounded Alex. Alex looked at the 4 squires classified as assassins and his eyes sparkled with excitement. He had already sensed them but was waiting for them to appear. Instead of a caring, he looked rather anticipatory as he muttered exps. The assassins' brows furrowed as they looked at the man with a strange look. One of them walked up to Alex, raised his dagger and slashed him. Alex stepped aside and avoided the attack and kicked the man in the stomach, sending him flying. As another man appeared behind Alex and raised his dagger, aiming at Alex's neck, and slashed. Alex didn't need to turn around, and as if he had eyes in the back of his head, he simply raised his axe to block. Clash! A loud clang was heard as the tip of the dagger collided with an axe. The man's expression stiffened and he jumped back, but Alex's hand moved faster and caught the man's leg and threw it at the other assassin coming at him. Swish! An assassin leapt at Alex and slashed at him, but his dagger was met with empty air. He quickly raised his dagger as his senses screamed in danger. Alex's figure appeared above the man and he raised his V-shaped dagger to defend himself, but Alex with his physical strength tore off the man's defense and cut him into 2 halves. "You have gained 50 experience points," Alex nodded in satisfaction as he saw the experience points. Although he hadn't risen in rank or reached the squire rank, his strength had reached the peak of the squire or even surpassed them in terms of stats. So, he can now be said to be a pseudo-squire rank warrior who can't just use mana. The remaining 3 were horrified as they watched their companion easily die while the man screamed and took a step back in fear. "Kill him! Kill him!" the master shouted. 3 squires can't even kill a little man. Why the fuck was my family raising useless people like you? The assassin's face turned red with anger. He had never felt such humiliation in his entire life. Their entire life was going smoothly and they enjoyed their work. Until now, these rookies only fought and crushed ants and didn't know what true despair was when faced with a strong opponent. Killing the weak had already distorted their senses, making them think they were strong warriors. But they didn't know that what they thought was the top of the chain was the base of the chain of strength until they encountered a top predator like Alex. Feeling fear, the 3 of them leapt towards Alex at once. Bang! 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 Alex didn't even flinch or take a step back from where he stood, but 3 figures were shot out like a cannon when they met Alex's swift punch and crashed into the wall. Before they could get up, Alex appeared before them and swung the axe towards their heads. Whistle. Like a gentle wind blowing, the axe passed over their heads like butter and splattered blood, and one head fell to the ground with a thud and rolled across the floor. The other 2 were frozen, and before they could know what was happening, Alex killed them all. 3 notifications for 50 experience points appeared before him. Alex, after finally killing the appetizer, walked towards the delicious main course. "Who are you and where do you come from?" the man shouted and fell to his knees. "Isn't it obvious that I came from my mother's womb?" Alex replied with a wide grin that made the man tremble in fear. The man's back was drenched in sweat as he looked at the blood-stained face and red eyes that made the man look like a demon straight out of hell. "What do you want? You want money, land, girls? I'll give you anything as long as you don't kill me," the man said with a shaky voice. "It's not about what I want, it's about you." Alex spoke, shaking his head, and removed his mask-like veil, which shocked the man when he found that his face was similar to a certain idiot. Hey, Larry, didn't you say you wanted to sleep with my wife? Alex said with a wide smile. Don't worry, I've come to take you to my wife. But before that, I'm going to give you a beauty treatment and you're going to enjoy it. Alex spoke with a smile like a demon as he let go while grabbing the axe head and raised the stick towards Larry. A piercing, heart-wrenching scream echoed that shook the entire mansion, and the screams didn't stop until the arrival of dawn. Chapter 29, Don't Test My Patience. In front of the massive castle walls, the darkness of the night was dispelled with the arrival of dawn, as the sun's rays shook off the darkness, announcing the arrival of a warm and bright day. The day has great significance that will decide the future of Nevin. The nobles and their army had formed a fortress in front of the castle. The noble spies had informed them that the idiot king had awakened and would make an appearance before them today. The noble intended to humiliate the king and show him who the real boss is. This is necessary so that what happened in the throne room does not happen again. And if things get worse, they would simply sell the entire kingdom to other kingdoms colliding with them. The nobles walked onto the stage that was prepared earlier. They walked onto it and sat on the chair with a big smile, thinking of the scenes that would entertain them today. Furthermore, they have added another goal to their list, to finish off Mordek and bring that bitch who stood by the king's side and would use her as a slave to her knees. They had a meeting and everyone agreed to teach that bitch who doesn't know her place a lesson. Screech. With a loud screech, the huge castle gate opened. And wearing a white noble suit, the king walked out of the castle, followed by Mordek and Raya. Behind them, a huge line of 100 men walked in a coordinated manner and carrying weapons. Most of them didn't have armor or protective helmets, but the nobles didn't have time to dwell on that, as they felt quite strange in the scene. Because all of them were led by the idiot king. And to their surprise, the king's face had a mature appearance and his walking posture had changed. His idiotic eyes that wandered back and forth were focused as he stared at them with a sharp gaze. Anyone who met his gaze with Alex's felt a chill down their spine that made them shiver in fear. Those fierce and thirsty eyes seemed to scream for blood and sacrifice. Alex stood in front of the nobles. Looking at them, he rolled his eyes at the strength of the nobles and that of his minions. The rank of disciples was 14 and that of squire was 213. That was the core of the nobles' army. While on Alex's side, he had Raya and Mordek along with 128 ranks of squires whom he had rescued from prison, and some of them were leftovers from the castle guards. Others are useless pieces of trash who just laze around and whom Alex had to give a proper dose of punishment to. "I heard that everyone wanted to talk to me," Alex said with a serious expression. The nobles frowned upon hearing his voice but pushed it away, thinking of what an army of ants could do in front of them. "Your Majesty, we ask that you heed our grievances and give us justice," one of them spoke. Alex nodded and asked them to continue. "As everyone here has seen, They have brutally murdered Sten and Han, who were innocent and devoted citizens of Nevin. Their family sacrificed everything for Nevin, and that was how they obtained the noble title that you took away from them. I don't know if it was your decision or if someone influenced you to do so, Alex sighed and said. What compensation do you want? The nobles laughed, thinking of how easy it was to trick the king. Speaking of the first, we want their titles that respectfully belong to them to be returned to them. Second, we want compensation for the losses and psychological damages. We also want a share of the kingdom's finances. Mordek sneered and his face turned red with anger. If it wasn't for Alex's warning, he would have rushed over and knocked this man down. Damn you, you've already looted the kingdom's money unofficially, and now you want to officially corner the money by taking rights to an official document. Just this? Alex asked with curiosity and a surprised expression. No. No. There's a third thing we want. What's wrong? Alex asked. A man clapped his hands and the soldier beside him quieted down and 5 beautiful women appeared. They didn't dare to raise their heads and just stood there silently without saying anything. We want that caretaker of yours. She failed as a caretaker. We'll take her and give you these 5 beautiful ladies. These women have been trained to take care of idiots. I mean children. They will dedicate their heart and soul to taking care of you. The man spoke with a small smile. Now, Your Majesty, do you agree to the terms? Alex closed his eyes for a moment. The entire place fell silent as they watched the king ponder over it. The nobles were already certain that the king would agree to the term, or else they would have no choice but to beat him up. Although many didn't know what was going on, only those close to Alex knew that it was just the calm before the storm. The silence before the eruption of a volcano that would shake this entire land today, as they knew that the anger Alex had been holding back and suppressing in his heart was about to burst out. Alex opened his eyes that were glowing blood red as if they were thirsty for blood. Just because I give you a chance, now you want to dance on my head. I've had enough of your falsehood. Hey, you bastards. I'll give you one last chance. Go home and take out all the documents and the key to your treasure and give them to me in 2 hours. Obey me and submit to me, or I swear I will kill you all or peel off your skin and roast you alive. Even if you die, you will not have a proper burial. I will strip all of your corpses and hang them on the city wall to serve as an example. Your death will be the food of my kingdom. Alex's words echoed like thunder in the eardrums of those present, who felt as if a massive bolt of lightning had struck them and their expressions crumbled. Suddenly, a man raised his trembling finger and pointed at Alex and said, "This can't be. He's no longer an idiot. He's become normal, correct?" Alex smiled and said, "Now don't test my patience any further, you idiots. Because when I lose my patience, many people will surely lose their presence." Chapter 30, Confrontation. Hearing Alex's loud shout, the noble's eyeball widened in disbelief. This idiot had become normal. The information rang like thunder in their ears and shook them to the bone. But they maintained their composure. Even if he's back to normal, so what? Hey, you bastard, what the hell are you mumbling about? Another noble stepped out and shouted at the top of his lungs. You're the one who's testing our patience. Do you think this entire army is just for show? With a single order from us, we can crush your entire castle and end your insignificant life, another said. Duke Eric stepped forward and said, "We don't need to waste time listening to their foolish conversations. The dead tell no tales, let's get over it already," Duke Eric said and raised his hand to order the guards behind him to march forward. Seeing the guards marching away, Alex hurriedly shouted, "Stop! Stop!" Eric smiled at their cowardly tone and raised his hand to stop their march. "Before we fight, I want to say a few things," Alex said. "First thing," Alex muttered in a deep and solemn voice, and raising his head, he looked at a huge group of people with a terrifying gaze. "If you want to fight on behalf of these nobles, then fine, I have no qualms about it, but keep this in mind. If I win the battle, which I will surely win, your families' lives will be harmed. I will kill every single one of your families and give the flesh of their bodies to the beasts, and your heads would also be hung along with the nobles." Alex. "Don't cross the line," Eric shouted as he released his hold. "Son of a bitch, you're the one who crossed the line," Alex said and stomped on the ground. The ground cracked and his angry voice echoed throughout the place. "Don't forget, your family already crossed the line. While we're at it, let me give you a gift for all your hard work and sacrifices." Alex spoke and waved his hand. Following his gesture, the soldier behind him branched off, leaving some space. The sound of chains could be heard and Max appeared as he dragged a figure across the ground. As the body was dragged, it left a trail of blood behind. Max threw the guy to the ground in front of Alex. Upon seeing the guy again, Alex's blood began to boil and his eyes began to glow with anger. He squatted on the ground, pulled the man's hair and lifted his face up. He looked at Eric with a smirk. "Hey, do you know him?" Eric's eyeball widened as he saw the figure. At first he thought it was just some ordinary prisoner, but upon seeing the man's face, his body trembled. "Son!" Eric screamed in panic upon seeing his son's condition. All of his son's nails had been pulled out and his body was swollen from the beatings and had wounds from the whip cuts. "Hey, Larry, do you understand? Your precious daddy is calling for you." Seeing that Larry was not responding, Alex slapped him across the face. Slap. Larry suddenly woke up from his stupor and when he saw his father, he screamed and asked him to save him. Eric lost his cool and pulled out his sword and was about to rush towards Alex, but his movement stopped when he saw a small dagger near his son's throat. "Even before you can take a step forward, your son will die," Alex said and threatened Eric. Eric gritted his teeth and bit his lips in frustration and dropped his sword. "Let him go," Eric demanded. "I beg," Alex shouted. Eric's entire body shuddered as he saw Alex's determined look. "Please, let him go," Eric said, bowing his head. "Have you ever seen someone beg like that? Are you begging me or threatening me? Kneel on the ground and beg," Alex ordered in a cold tone. Eric wanted to scream, but his body froze as he saw Alex's dagger move a little and blood gush out of Larry's throat. "For the love of God, Father, please do as he says. I don't want to die. I don't want to be around this demon. Please, Father, save me," Larry screamed at the top of his lungs. Eric's expression stiffened and as he knelt down, countless thoughts of slaughtering Alex ran through his mind. He vowed to annihilate everyone who was on Alex's side after saving his son. Eric fell to the ground, hitting his head and begging for his son's life to be spared. "I will spare him and I will spare his life, but before that, Uncle Mordek, tell me what you will do if someone wants to sleep with your wife." Mordek flinched a little as he heard Alex suddenly ask and said angrily, "I will crush his balls." "Ah, what an idea." Alex spoke up and kicked him, raised his leg and stomped on a specific spot on Larry. A cracking sound was heard. Eric was dumbfounded by what happened and raised his head to see what that cracking sound was. His eyes lost color and his eardrums burst as a heart-wrenching scream echoed throughout the place. The scream was so terrifying that some people unconsciously covered their nether parts in fear. Alex stomped his feet again and looked at Eric and spoke with an angelic smile. "You can take it now." Eric's eyes turned bloodshot from such humiliation and picking up the Fallon sword at the side, he ran towards Alex and slashed. Alex laughed and leaned to the side, dodging the attack with small movements within human speed, and drew his sword from his waist with a quick draw. Slash. With a beautiful movement drawn in a circle, blood splattered on Alex's face and a head flew back into the air and landed near the other nobles. A noble woke up from a stupor and wanted to rush towards Alex to kill him, but in the middle of his way, his head was already cut off and separated from his body. Red-Eye's figure disappeared and quickly appeared beside Alex after dealing with a man. Out of nowhere, Leo appeared and jumped on Alex's shoulder and started licking the blood. "Hey, Leo, don't lick this blood. It's the blood of a rotten person." Roar. Leo roared in agreement and roared again. "What do you want to eat? Those rotten materials? No, they will taste bad and will upset your stomach. I will take you to a good place to eat," Alex said with a beautiful smile. The noble expression crumbled upon hearing Alex's words of calling them rotten material. Alex looked at the nobles and said, "I will give them one last chance to surrender, otherwise, a river of blood will flow from here today." Alex spoke with a cruel and sinister smile that made him look like a demon from hell. Hearing his call, a noble stepped out from the crowd, raised his hands in surrender, and walked towards Alex. Chapter 31, Confrontation 2. Marshna Smith walked to Alex's side along with her troops, while other nobles stood there with gaping gazes. Smith smiled a little and greeted Alex with a short nod. Smith was on Alex's side from the start, and he was the one who slipped the ring into Dordan's pocket when Alex pretended to stumble into the nobles. And now his change of sides was a heavy blow to the noble spirit. The nobles were stunned by the sudden turn of events and wanted to curse Smith for turning away from them at such an important moment. Seeing this, one of the nobles wanted to join Alex's side and was about to step forward but heard Alex's voice. "Time's up." "What do you mean time's up?" the nobles asked. "That's what you heard. Your time to join had exceeded the time I had allotted to you. Since you don't know how to seize the opportunity, you'll have to regret it," Alex said as he looked at the remaining ones. There are still 11 nobles present on the opposing side. What Alex wanted to do was to slowly break the noble spirit. He doesn't want to start a war now. They have too few people right now, and most of them would die because of their senseless war. Furthermore, many of the noble side's soldiers were forced to join, so there was no way Alex could hold them accountable after all these common soldiers were too weak to resist the nobles. By the way, I have a gift for all of you. Since you nobles have dedicated and sacrificed so much for the country, you should all be rewarded for all your hard work, Alex said with a smile that sent a chill down the nobles' spines, and they felt like something horrible was going to happen again. Alex's loud applause woke them up from their stupor. Alex clapped his hands and whistled to send a signal. A few moments later, Alex smiled and pointed his finger at the top of the city wall. He said, "Look there. I hope you like the gift." The nobles were curiously staring at the top of the castle walls. They were quite nervous and were wondering what the hell the king was talking about. But when they beheld the scene on top of the city wall, they were horrified and their eyes widened and filled with horror. On top of the wall were a few people tied up with chains and ropes. They were accompanied by some guards, and the one leading them was none other than the person whom they had sent to the king and accused of theft. As they looked at the pathetic figures on top of the walls, they cried out in terror, "No, what is my son doing there? And my son too? What the fuck is this? Hey, look at that man," said one of them, pointing his finger at a bloodied figure whose entire body seemed to be swollen from the beating. "Doesn't he look familiar?" "Yeah, now that you've mentioned it, I've seen him somewhere." Alex chuckled at their expressions as they played the guessing game while his entire faction burst into laughter, holding their stomachs. Mordek couldn't hold back his laughter until tears fell from his eyes. Alex looked up, waved his hand at the bloodied figure and said, "Hey, Grandpa Gold, how are you? Are you enjoying the cinematic view of the city from above, by the wall? How's the deal? Are you satisfied with the service? Please give us your feedback so we can improve our deal. Your name will be etched in gold in Nevin's history." The man who gave himself up to experience the heavenly pleasure of the king of Nevin's special service. Everyone's voices choked up at Alex's shameless bragging. They couldn't believe the way that boy was carrying himself. They felt that even after he recovered, he still had a few screws loose. Since when did torture become a service? Seeing that Dorda didn't say anything, Alex's face grimaced and he shouted, "What the fuck, Ben? What the hell did you do? Didn't I tell you to give the best service? But what the hell did you do? Our service was so pathetic that Grandpa Dorda was completely dissatisfied with our service, and now he doesn't want to talk. He's upset about our poor service," Alex shouted. Hearing Alex's words, the noble eyes widened and became lifeless. Ben, who was standing overseeing the eloquent service, bowed his head and said, "Please forgive me, Your Majesty. This humble servant has betrayed your expectations. Please give me one more chance to redeem myself. I'll make sure to properly please the guest," Ben said sadly. "Okay, I forgive you. Now, give us all a glimpse of the service," Alex said, rubbing his nose. Ben nodded and stood in front of Dorda staring at him with hate-filled eyes as he remembered all the nightmares he had been through. Slap. 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 One after another, loud cracks echoed and resounded under the deathly silence of the castle walls. Ben grabbed Dorda's chin and shouted, "Hey, you bastard. Can't you hear Majesty's words? She's asking for your opinion. Can't you speak? You want me to pull your tongue out and feed it to the dogs? Why don't you speak, you bastard? Speak. Slap. Speak." Slap. Ben unleashed his curses and slaps on Dorda, who looked quite pitiful and wanted to cry. Woof. Wow wow. Dorda tried to speak but her mouth was covered by clothes preventing her from speaking. Ben narrowed his eyes, pulled out the stuffed cloth and looked at Alex with an embarrassed look. "Your Majesty, I'm sorry, I forgot about this. Ow. It's just a small mistake." "Oh. No problem. That happens when someone gets distracted by what they're doing while providing special services to others. For God's sake, Dorda, say something. My reputation is at stake," Alex shouted. "It was fine," Dorda muttered. "What? Speak loudly," Alex said with a cold look. "It was very nice and pleasurable. I enjoyed it to the fullest." Dorada screamed and smiled and exposed her missing teeth and blood started coming out of her mouth. "Look, didn't I tell you about my special celestial service? Now decide whether you want to book an appointment for your children or cancel it." The nobles stepped back, imagining the brutal assault Dorda suffered, and looked at their children hanging on the chain. They looked at them with teary eyes, begging them for help. The nobles finally shuddered and fell to their knees, even though they had huge troops. Their family was in danger. Moreover, The girl's strength was enough to wipe out half of them. In the throne room, they couldn't measure her strength, but when she released her pressure earlier, they could sense that she was at the epic rank or higher. They knelt on the ground, put their heads on the ground, and spoke in a monotone, "Please forgive us, we will never betray you. We will always follow your orders. We swear by the name of our house and the name of God." A large crowd had gathered, mostly consisting of common people, and they saw the noble kneeling before someone. His eyes filled with shock and disbelief as a loud voice echoed out. "I, Alex, the king of Nevin, assume all the rights granted to the nobles and swear in front of all the people that I will bring back the golden days of Nevin filled with joy and laughter. This is my promise. A promise to you and a promise to myself that Nevin will soon reign in glory." Chapter 32, How to Handle the Consequences. On the throne, Alex sat with his legs crossed with a big smile on his face. To the people who followed Alex, they saw him as a messenger of God who was sent here to punish evildoers. But from the noble's point of view, he looked like a bandit who uses every possible means to crush his enemies without any rules. This guy doesn't follow the rules. After all, who in their right mind kidnaps their family members in the interwar period? Seeing Alex use cheap and dishonest methods, even they felt ashamed of themselves and fell short of his evilness. While a large part of the noble's power was concentrated in front of the castle walls, Riaya, along with the newly formed Shadow Squad, snuck into the nobles' houses and kidnapped their families. Since all of the nobles' families were in town and had come to visit the place due to Alex's invitation, this made their job rather easy. Alex was having a hard time holding back his laughter. Riaya kidnapped Dorda in the middle of the night without anyone noticing, and these nobles couldn't sense her absence until she appeared at the castle walls. What kind of shit was Dorda? Even he felt sorry for the poor soul who had given his all to plunder the resources and pass them on to the nobles who don't even remember his great work and couldn't even sense his presence despite him being the main instigator of this chaos. Alex looked at the remaining nobles. Before coming here, he had already executed 4 more nobles because they had committed many unforgivable acts. The ones left alive were only involved in robberies and some minor skirmishes. "Do you know why you're all alive?" Alex asked in a heavy tone. The nobles shook their heads and looked at Alex pleadingly to forgive them for not knowing the answer. They were too terrified to answer incorrectly and received special services from him. "You don't even know this? How the hell did you become brainless nobles?" Alex sighed and pinched the skin between his eyebrows. "It's because I'm a benevolent king who can't see his people suffer. So how can I kill all of you who shed blood and sweat for this kingdom?" Alex said with a smile. Everyone's mouth twitched upon hearing his answer. If you are benevolent, then the devil must be worshipped as the saint, the nobles thought. Those who have been killed will have all their lands and wealth confiscated. All of you can keep a portion of your wealth. I won't ask for an unreasonable amount. All of you must donate 40% of your wealth and dispose of your military rights, except for maintaining the minimum squadron for protection. Bassi, you have to donate 20% of your wealth. Bassi frowned as he thought about being left alone, but this guy won't leave anyone to take advantage of. The nobles sighed in relief. 40% doesn't mean much as long as everyone is still alive. As they felt relieved and felt a huge weight on their shoulders, they heard Alex's words. "It's not over," Alex said and stared at them. You. Alex pointed at 3 nobles among the pack and said, "You will be the ones in charge of handling the maintenance and building new roads. In a month, I want all the roads in the capital to be in perfect condition, and the 3 of you will be responsible if in a month the roads are not in good condition again. I will make sure that the road will be your grave, where you will take your last breath," Alex said in a stern voice. He gulped. The nobles gulped upon hearing Alex's terrifying statement. "Now you guys." Alex pointed at 3 other individuals and shouted, "You guys will be in charge of cleaning up the city. And the deadline is 1 month. In 1 month, I want this city to be as clean as your own house. Otherwise." The nobles trembled waiting for Alex's next words. "Don't worry. I won't kill you," Alex said with a smile. The nobles wiped the sweat off their heads. "I'll just turn your house into a garbage dump for the capital." Cough. Cough. Alex was annoyed by someone's cough and shouted, "Who is that bastard with no sense of eloquence?" "Me." Alex looked to the side and saw Mordek coughing loudly. "Oh, uncle, take your time. Who has a problem with Uncle Mordek's cough? Can't an old man cough? Don't you guys cough? Look, Uncle Mordek, no one is in trouble. You can cough all you want." Mordek felt like he would cough up blood if Alex continued his shamelessness. Mordek was stunned to see the noble house being turned into a garbage dump, as his house was close to one of them. And he knew that Alex wasn't joking, and that he would really make their houses into a garbage dump, which he wanted to refute but couldn't muster the courage. Alex pointed at a few more people and distributed a task to each of them. Their first goal was to rebuild the city's structures. The second was to revive its economy. The third was to increase its military strength. The fourth was to create an educational institution. Alex asked Bassi to start recruiting officials for administration and other things and start collecting the document. When the meeting was about to end, a nobleman plucking up his courage asked, "Your Highness, for the task you have given us, who will provide us with the money?" The entire throne room fell deathly silent. Alex was surprised for a moment but shook his head. Sometimes he is surprised at his own benevolence and tolerance. Why on earth did you think I would only confiscate 40% of your wealth? Should I cut it into pieces? No. No, let's be merciful for once. Behind him, many people were burning incense in the name of this man. Do you want to know who will give the money? Alex asked. The man nodded. Come with me. We will have a nice, cordial and long conversation. I will answer all your questions there. Max, Ben will also accompany you. You will also receive Nevin's special celestial service. The man's face turned pale and he lost all his blood. No, please forgive me. Hey, why are you asking me if I'm sorry? We were just going to enjoy it. Hey, take it, Alex ordered. Max and Ben dragged the man with them and left the room while Alex waved them to not do anything and leave the man. Dismiss. Mordek looked at the people leaving and said, were they born with thick skin? I've never seen a king as shameless as you. Alex rubbed his nose and said, thank you. Shamelessness and insensitivity is an art. You wouldn't understand it even if you tried to understand it with all your heart. Mordek wanted to hit his head for asking such a question. On the way, Alex suddenly pulled Ridaya and carried her in a princess position. Sir, what are you doing? Alex smiled and said, are we going to do what husband and wife do? What? Ridaya said and her face turned red. Alex put her down on the bed and asked, what? You don't want to do it? No, I mean yes, Ridaya said in a tender and meek voice. Alex laughed and, sleeping beside her, hugged her and said, don't worry, Ridaya. I'm not going to force you. We can take as much time as we want. I'm happy to have you as my wife, Alex said and hugged Ridaya. I'm also happy to be your wife, Ridaya said but noticed that Alex had already fainted and was having sweet dreams. Ridaya knew that Alex hadn't slept for many days running around here, and after taking care of the nobles, he could finally get some rest. Ridaya laughed, brought her head closer to his chest, and gave him a sweet and soft kiss on the forehead. Chapter 33, How to Deal with Problems. Mordek looked worriedly at the documents on the table. Even Mordek, who is obsessed with the military and unfamiliar with government affairs, understands the situation of this country. It was on the verge of destruction. Nevin was running out of food and there was a recession in revenue. If these problems weren't enough, there is an influx of refugees from the other kingdoms, and on top of that there is the pressure from the Kinleys for the annual money. All of this was cause for concern and Alex had to face it again. In all likelihood, even if the previous king's reign continued, it would only last for a few more years. As expected from a person who is quite good at administration and has learned several things from the modern world, he could see it. Therefore, we have the tax that we must pay to Kinley. May I ask why the hell you haven't paid them taxes? Do you think they are faint-hearted? Alex asked in an angry voice. All of the documents were kept in Dordan's vault. If Alex had known earlier, he would have skinned those nobles. Bassi saw Alex's anger and said, they thought that since you were the youngest prince of Kinley, they assumed we didn't have to pay the tax and could keep the money. Who the fuck was that bastard? Alex growled angrily. Dorda. Bassi replied in a monotone. Alex rubbed his forehead. Not only do we have to raise funds for the reform. Now, we also have to pay the taxes. 2 years of taxes is quite bothersome for our current situation. Wait, isn't Wright also considered part of Nevin? So we have to pay his taxes too? Alex asked. No, they already paid their taxes, Bassi said. Alex sighed as he looked at the amount. Although we can pay the tax with the money we got from plundering. I mean the money the nobles offered for their generosity. We would return to that pathetic state again, Alex said. As he spoke, an idea suddenly occurred to him. Why don't we ask a rich merchant for a loan? I mean, I remembered that my wife is the daughter of the richest merchant, Alex said. I don't think that would be a good idea. Mordek and Bassi spoke at the same time. Your Highness, Do you know better than us what your relationship with your wife is like? Besides, the Lockharts are proud people. I'm sure they hold a grudge against you and may try to act against you. They won't cross the line though, Bassie advised. Since it's come to this point, I think we should postpone the matter, Alex said. Bassie, I wanted to write a letter to Kinley to delay my tax payment for 6 months. At the very least, ask them for 2 months. In the meantime, we need to raise our funds along with the economy, Alex said. By the way, tell me what we have in Nevin, mainly something that others don't have. Wait. I wanted to talk about that. Do we have a monocrystal mine or a gold mine or something else? Alex asked. Bassie shook his head and said, we don't have a crystal mine or a gold mine. We do have 3 iron ore mines, though. Alex, who was listening intently, was startled and asked, what the hell? We have an iron mine, why don't we have good weapons and material? Mordek and Bassie looked at each other. Your Highness, there's a problem with iron ore. We can barely extract enough material from it, Bassie said. You mean our product is too cheap? Alex said and leaned back in his chair. The world Alex lives in is not a modern world where everything is mechanized, so people have to rely on manual labor to perform their tasks. Alex was sure that if he sent a lot of squire rank warriors to the mine, that would ease production by a lot of margins. But sending soldiers to mine is not optimal. Plus, they already had fewer soldiers to begin with. Also, most of the iron is in the hands of the noble houses on whose territory the mines are located, and we have received a report that there is a problem with the 3rd mine, Bassie said. Alex nodded and decided to see what the problem was later. We don't have a mage? Alex asked only to receive a big no. You're talking about mages. We don't even have proper archers or good commanders who can lead a battlefront. Our army is full of fools who only know how to do what they are told, Mordek said in a sarcastic tone that had a hint of sadness. So, you say that we need to restructure all of our armies, Alex said. Uncle Mordek, I have a doubt. As far as we remember, we only have 2 master rank warriors. One is you and the other is Earl Hamilton Steelfield of House Steelfield, who is in charge of the Western Pass, Alex asked. Then knowing the situation, it shouldn't be possible for Nevin to produce a master rank. So how did both of you get this far? Although the master rank isn't worth mentioning in Alex's eyes, in a small kingdom like Nevin which was on the verge of destruction and producing a master, the rank is incredible. Taking a look, Rhea is at the epic rank just 1 kingdom above Mordek. She is hailed as a genius because she had just turned 19, and Alex was confident that within a year or 2 she would reach the transcendent rank. Christina reached the transcendent rank at the age of 22, and Rhea would reach it even faster than her. Mordek sighed at Alex's question and said, that's because me and Steelfield showed a lot of prospects to the younger generation and your adoptive parents saw potential in us and put all their resources into both of us and even sent Kinley to become a knight, but we failed. Alex could sense a hint of sadness in Mordek's words. Alex knew that Mordek might look good, but that this could turn into deep regret for him and it could have become a knot in his heart that needed to be untied. When an individual reaches epic rank before the age of 25, they can be called a knight, which was a title for elite soldiers. Uncle Mordek, you have no reason to regret it, you can still become a knight, from our Nevin and future trained knight. How is the training going with the children we've chosen? Alex asked. They're improving rapidly and within a year or 2, they'll soon be a force to be reckoned with. Chapter 34, Rhea's Past. Inside the castle. Alex was sitting in his room as a large sheet of paper covered the entire table. Alex put all his concentration and focus into drawing things on the paper as if his life depended on it. Although Alex studied mechanical engineering, he still had basic knowledge of architecture, which was enough for this world where people mainly rely on magic and focus less on learning modern things. The world is similar to the ancient medieval era of kings. As he was feeling tired, a silhouette appeared behind him and placing hands on his shoulders began to massage him. A soft and pleasant moan escaped from Alex as he felt the soft and delicate touch combined with a sweet lingering scent. Rhea, you have to do something about your stealth. You can't just appear out of nowhere. No, in the first place, why do you have to avoid people? You're my wife and you have a power similar to the Queen of Nevin, Alex asked. Rhea was like a recluse. Although she accompanies Alex most of the time with her stealth, Alex didn't like this. Alex wanted Rhea to come out of the shadow and walk beside him, holding his hand and not following or chasing him. I'm sorry, my lord. I can't do this. I don't like it, Rhea said with a sad tone. Is it because of your charm? Asked Alex. Ria's brows furrowed and she asked in a shaky voice, "What do you mean by that?" Alex took Ria's hand which she placed on his shoulder and said, "Ria, you didn't need to hide it. I already knew that." "What? Do you know, my lord?" Ria's voice faltered as she looked at Alex with a resolute gaze. "Husband and wife are each other's other half. You can always rely on me. I know, you have a special power. Ria, you are holding back your charm, which if accidentally released can wreak havoc," Alex said with a smile. "Your power comes from the goddess of lust. You are blessed by her," Alex said. Ria's eyes widened and she looked at Alex with eyes full of shock and disbelief. She shook her head and muttered, "It's more of a curse than a blessing." "Why did you think that?" Alex asked. "My lord, would you like to hear a short story?" Ria asked with sad eyes. Alex nodded. Ria sat down next to Alex and began to narrate her life to her. Ria didn't know who her parents were nor did she remember where she was born. As far as she remembered, her life started in a small orphanage in Kingley. She lived there and did random housework. She was good at taking care of children younger than her. She mostly accompanied her younger brother and sister until she was 7 years old. Even as a child, her beauty was praised by many. When people passed by the orphanage, they would always praise her, appreciate her, and look at her as a work of art, and many would admire her. Even at such a tender age, she was a beauty to be competed with. She started to feel proud and somewhat arrogant at how beautiful she was. But as the saying goes, beauty brings calamity. One day, suddenly, someone showed up at the orphanage and asked to adopt her and offered some money to the orphanage. The orphanage was happy and thought they had gotten a good deal, while she was happy to have finally found someone she could call her parents. But that was just the beginning of the nightmare. The man who adopted her was a slave trader who saw a good prospect in her. He took her and locked her in a room. If it weren't for the fact that she wasn't ripe, she would be auctioned off to someone rich that day. The person thought that she would be ripe 12 or 13 years ago and waited. Her life started to become a nightmare because she was abused and the man used violence against her. She was locked in a dark room, with no light, with no one but the man and his subordinate. Except for being fed 3 times a day, she didn't have any interaction for years. One day, when she was about to break down, she heard a voice in her head telling her to let go, to release her power. Let the world become your slave. She didn't know what happened next, but everyone went crazy and knelt down to their death. She took this opportunity to escape, but still, some slave traders found out about it and started chasing and hunting her. That's how she met Alex, who unknowingly left the castle while playing hide and seek. She had hidden herself in a chest they took out of the castle, which she opened in the middle of the journey and walked out. Ria laughed. "I remember how that day, the entire palace fell into chaos and they thought you had been kidnapped." Alex's mouth twitched as she heard her part in Ria's story, as it sounded like a typical cliché story where the leader ran out of the house and met him, though her circumstance was different. "I guess she should find some time to listen to my legendary idiotic actions," Alex thought. "Ria, but isn't that the reason why you're staying out of the sight of others?" Alex asked. "This is because of the incident that happened in the castle, and there was a fight between you and the third prince." "Ria, you're telling me that I fought with the third prince?" Alex asked as Ria's words piqued his curiosity. Ria nodded and narrated the events. "As you know, I was raised as your servant and caretaker. Most people thought that I would marry you. I didn't wear a veil back then, so most people saw my face, and of all people, the third prince wanted to marry me." Alex's eyeball widened and his blood boiled unconsciously and he clenched his fist. "One day, he barged into your mansion and wanted to take me by force, telling me that I should waste my time with you and that I should serve him instead, but you wouldn't let go and pounced on him." But Ria spoke as she looked into Alex's burning eyes. Alex sighed and said, "You don't have to say more. I guess he would have beaten me up." "He would have beaten me up," Ria nodded and a faint smile appeared on her face. "Still, I remembered how you refused to give up and screamed till the very end that Ria is mine." "Ria is mine?" Ria's face flushed and turned red. "I wasn't able to watch you being beaten to such a state and I accidentally did that. I mean, I released that power and after that, you don't need to say more." "I understand," Alex said and hugged Ria. "So, my manly fighting made you fall in love with me?" Alex whispered into Ria's ear, who blushed. Ria simply nodded with a cute expression while Alex started teasing her and asked her to narrate more of her legendary feats. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 35, We Will Hunt in Sheep's Clothing. On a large, wide road in the middle of the desert, a group of people were charging across the road. At the front of them was Alex himself. Beside him were Max, who was in charge of the right flank, and Ben, who was in charge of the left flank. In the middle of the entire group, there was a caravan and a carriage with huge pieces of mirror coated in black. Alex rode his horse towards his next destination, the Godavari iron mine. Out of 3 mines, he found that this one was the most troublesome to handle. Unlike the other mines, where iron was extracted from the ground or ores, the mine here is a huge mass of rocky earth that needs to be broken up and transported, which was difficult for ordinary people, and to top it off, a bandit had occupied this place. And Alex was going to teach that bastard a lesson. On their way, they encountered various kinds of beasts and monsters that attacked them and were eliminated by their squads. The 20 men he brought here with him were the elite of the current Nevin. Alex watched the battle as Max tore the dog's muzzle apart while Ben cut off the snake's head. Ben was at the peak of the squire rank and would soon advance to the disciple rank, while Max had yet to awaken mana and his strength stat had reached 20 according to his observation. Growl, growl. There, Alex's eyes flashed as he heard the monster roar and he shouted, "This will be my prey." Alex's horse, as if it had received the signal, charged forward. Explosion. Explosion. When Alex arrived at the place, he saw some wild seraphers headbutting the bridge. What the hell? Alex frowned as he saw that the beasts were trying to destroy the bridge. If the bridge is destroyed, they will be in trouble and will have to cross the river. Seraphers are 3-horned giraffes that have slightly shorter necks. Seeing a whole group of them, Alex ordered his man to get into a fighting stance and be careful. Alex jumped off his horse, pulled out his sword, jumped on one of the seraphers and stabbed his sword into its back. The seraphers shrieked and screamed in pain and thrashed around wanting to throw Alex off their back. But Alex raised his hand and grabbed the serapher's horn and, holding on tight, raised his leg and stepped on the sword. Wah, he screamed as the sword pierced his body and died shortly after that. You have killed a mid-rank squire serapher. You have gained 100 experience points. Alex pulled out his sword and ran to help the others. A serapher turned its head and met the soldier's sword and threw him to the ground. As they fell, it rushed towards them to stab them with its horns. Metal clamp. A loud sound was heard as it collided with Alex's sword, who appeared before the soldiers like a gust of wind and shouted, "Stand back." Alex channeled strength into his hand and forced it to take a step back. Sparks flew as the metal of the sword and the serapher's horns rubbed against each other. Alex spun his sword and stepped aside, and with no strength to balance himself, the seraphers stuttered as Alex pulled out his sword and lunged towards a rock behind and crashed into it. Alex quickly seized the opportunity and pierced its neck. Clear sound. Clear sound. Ben was fighting the seraphers while swinging his sword fiercely. He kicked it in the leg and punched it in the face, and as he was about to kill it, he saw another one heading towards him. He was about to step back but stopped when with a thunderous cry, Max leapt over the seraphers in front of him and swung his axe with all his might at the approaching seraphers. Swish! With a large arc of his swing, the axe sliced through the serapher's neck, which flew out and fell to the ground with a loud thud. After fighting for quite some time, they were finally able to defeat the horde. Alex looked at his stats. Name, Alex von Stan Species, human rank, none level. 9 EXP. 40/250 HP. 30/30 mana. 0 strength. 27 agility. 24 stamina. 25 vitality. 23 stat points. 12 active skills. Eyes of Truth, unlocked. Mana Sensor, unlocked. Emperor's Charisma, locked. Emperor's Pressure, locked. Goddess Fortuna's Blessing, locked. Healing, locked. Restoration, locked. Goddess Enhancement, locked. Passive skills, G-level Piercing Thrust, level 0 Heavy Iron Swordsmanship, level 0 Abyssal Slash, level 0 Great Martial Art, level 0 Powerful Punch, spell, locked. G-level 5 Elements Breathing Technique. After crossing the bridge and walking for a few kilometers, they arrived at the outskirts of the mine. Alex suddenly stopped when he heard faint noises and his lips curved upwards as he raised his fist and clenched it, sending out a signal. With a soft hiss and bustling sound, many people emerged from the bushes and stood in his way. Alex tried to put on a sour face and looked around using a mana sensor to see that they were surrounded by 50 men. Suddenly Alex jumped off his horse and put on a scared face and asked, "Who are you?" A man walked out and stood on a rock. He looked at the group of people in front of him and smiled sinisterly, saying, "I'm a bandit." "What?" Everyone screamed and got off Alex. Alex started to shake and put his hands together in a pleading expression and said, "Please leave us. Please. Please don't kill us." The man smiled and thought about how he would enjoy killing them when suddenly Alex said, "If you promise not to kill us, we will share our treasures with you." The man frowned and asked what the guy was talking about. "Dear Mr. Bandit, in the carriage, there are tools for searching for treasures. We came here with a map that shows that there is a large amount of treasures here. If you allow us and don't kill us, I promise to share treasures with you." Alex spoke with a trembling and frightened face as he tried to stop the smile from appearing on his lips. Following his idea, everyone tried to act holy. After all, they wanted to hunt wearing sheepskins. Chapter 36, Meeting the leader of the bandit group. After pleading, crying, and begging for their lives to be spared, until the point where even the bandit's ears went numb, the bandit decided to at least listen to their words by bringing them before his leader. They were all tied up and treated like prisoners until a decision was made. Alex wasn't panicking and was enjoying the situation. For a modern guy like him, coming to a fantasy world similar to the one in the novel was a fun experience and something new. But the same couldn't be said about the bandits who were going to have a horrible nightmare by inviting a tiger into their wolf pack. Alex's goal was to dig up information about these bandits who appeared out of nowhere, and if they seemed useless, he would simply eliminate them from the route. Alex had found many unusual things in his report about them. First of all, they only stay in the area surrounding the mines. They usually don't steal or seek to attack others unless they appear near this area. The second was about the minerals. What were they doing forming a base here? And if iron is still being mined here, where did the mined iron go? Also, they have tracked people who were smuggling things out of Nevin, and what clues lead from this diverse place? What surprised Alex was the quality of the weapons. The quality of the weapons was quite good and comparable to theirs. A bandit using high-quality weapons in a habitable place like this is quite suspicious. Alex watched the route while signaling his man to stay careful. Most of these bandits were normal men and Alex could only see 9 awakened ones among those who came to attack them, so he was sure that most of the power was concentrated in the base. Alex and his men were led through a small rundown village where there were a small number of scruffy-looking people with sunken and hollow eyes. The small village seemed to be a town where mainly miners and their families lived. Alex wondered if the group of bandits were part of townspeople who united under a banner to spread their fame by performing the notorious deed. Finally, under a small cliff that formed a rocky ravine, they all met up. The squad leader called out to Alex to meet with a bandit leader, otherwise his men would be separated from him and would be in prison until things were cleared up. Alex nodded and followed the man's words, behaving like a meek coward. As Alex walked past, he could see many bandits looking at him with an amused look and starting to mock him. "Look at this man. He trembles just by looking at us, and from his attire he looks like a soldier." "Tisk, tisk," another man said, clicking his tongue. "It's hard to find real men like us." Their taunts fell on deaf ears for Alex, who was busy making a map of this underground place beneath the cliff. This underground hideout seemed to have previously been used as a mine, but was now being used as a dwelling for these bandits. Woof. Woof. Alex's footsteps stopped when he heard the scream that seemed to belong to children. Alex activated his mana sensor and looked at the rock wall in front of him, and his eyeball opened. Beside the wall there seemed to be hundreds of people who seemed to be prisoners. They were divided into 3 categories: little children, women, and men. Although Alex couldn't see their faces or get a clear idea of their age because of the wall, only one thing came to his mind, which was slavery. As if a piece of a puzzle was fusing together, Alex got a clue as to why that person never left the place. Alex stopped before a metal door as the man walked in to talk to the leader. Alex frowned, his expression worsening as he felt the leader's power. Disciple rank. What the hell is a disciple rank warrior doing here in this broken place? Alex thought as he began to rack his brains. Defeating a disciple rank warrior wasn't going to be easy for him. Clink. Alex walked inside, followed by 2 men leading him. The door was closed and locked from the inside, as if it was going to be a torture session for him. Inside the dark room, a small flashlight was lit, clearing the darkness. As Alex approached, He saw a man with a brown mustache and a huge scar on his left eye sitting on a chair, smoking a cigar. He looked at Alex and his gaze fell on him. He checked his strength and could sense no mana and ordered his man to untie Alex. As the others raised their voices, he laughed loudly. "You're saying that this newbie will play a prank on me to kill me? Then let me tell you that this half is 100 years too early to even touch a single strand of my hair. He hasn't even awakened the mana. Hey, kid. Tell me what you're doing here. If you lie, you'll regret being born into this world," the man said sharply. Alex's voice wavered and on shaky legs he asked, "Who are you guys?" The man's lips twitched and he said, "Haven't you heard of the mountain bandit in this area?" "What? No, I've never heard of bandits. Besides, I'm not from this state," Alex said in a small voice. "So, which state are you from?" "I'm a member of the brigade. I've invented a new tool for treasure hunting, and my friend from the brigade said that he had some friends near the iron mines here. So we came here because Nevin's security was already in trouble. We didn't encounter any trouble up until here, until your group came," Alex spoke. The man frowned and his facial expression hardened a little, which didn't go unnoticed by Alex. "Which friend are you talking about?" the man asked. "I can't say his name, but I only know that he bought slaves from somewhere and had a partnership with them," Alex said. The man fell into deep thought and Alex took the opportunity to ask, "Sir, if I'm not overstepping my bounds, may I ask you something?" Chapter 37, I will tear out every strand of your hair. The man looked at Alex with a strange look. "The iron mind here is sent to the brigade. If so, I think I can confirm something and I have a message for you." The entire room fell silent and each of them looked at each other. "Yes," the scarred man nodded. He didn't find it strange at all and thought that even if that man was lying, what could a foolish ant like him do? He just needs to confirm the truth with his customers. Alex smiled like an angel and said, "Thank you, sir, for answering. You can die in peace now." Alex's voice became high-pitched and he raised his hand, pulled a sword from his sleeves and threw it at the scarred man. Loud laughter broke the silence. The scarred man caught Alex's dagger with his 2 fingers, but a small cut formed on his finger that was barely noticeable. "You sure have guts, boy. Keep hidden until you can defeat your opponent." But unfortunately, the man clicked his tongue, looked at the man with pity and ordered, "Kill him." As soon as his command fell, the 2 men standing beside Alex pounced on him and threw their fists at him. Alex looked at the incoming fist with a bored look and stepped aside and tilted his head after calculating its trajectory accurately. The 2 men missed Alex and instead their fists headed towards each other. Although they were able to avoid hitting each other, Alex jumped on top of them and grabbed their heads, slamming them against each other. Bang! They felt like their worlds were spinning and they lost consciousness. Another man ran towards Alex, raised his leg and kicked him, aiming for Alex's head. Alex simply raised his hand and blocked the blow, and before the man could retract his leg, he felt a sudden pain on his cheek and couldn't react as his figure flew into the air as Alex kicked him. Bang! A loud voice thundered and a figure was sent flying and crashed into the wall. After kicking, a silhouette appeared in front of him and took him by surprise and punched him. Alex raised both his hands to defend himself. Bang! Bang! Alex's figure was shot towards him and crashed into the wall. Cough, cough. Alex coughed a little as dust entered his nostrils and he was barely able to stand up. As his body reacted on its own, bending his back, he leaned his body to the side. Hard. Another loud voice was heard that shook the entire room. Alex did a backflip and gained distance. As the dust practices began to disperse, he saw that the scarred man had joined the fight and had struck, making a huge hole and crack in the wall that extended quite deep into the rock face. Swish! A figure shot towards Alex and punched him. Alex didn't flinch, rather his heart began to beat faster from the excitement. Wanting to test the very limit of his physical strength and clenching his left tightly, he struck with all his might with his left hand. Bang! A strong shockwave was emitted from the blow that sent the chair, tables, and people that Alex had knocked out flying. The only light coming from the lit flashlight vanished and the glass shattered along with the fire burning inside, and the wooden table started to catch fire. The sleeves of a shirt that Alex was wearing were torn by the reaction of the force. And with a crash, Alex was forced to step back a little. In the confrontation, the scarred man had the upper hand. The guard outside the door knocked on the door and shouted if something was wrong, but the scared man smiled and said, "Don't worry, everything is under control. I'm just enjoying it, isn't that right?" the man asked as he looked at Alex with a smile. He was very curious about this boy who was able to exert so much force without being awakened, and thought that if he could beat him and obtain his secrets, he could earn a large sum. Alex sneered as he was able to guess the man's thoughts. Alex rolled up his other sleeve and raised his fist. He assumed a martial arts stance. The scarred man looked at Alex in amusement, as if he was some sort of artist, and his image blurred. Appearing in front of Alex, he was about to punch him in the face. A small crack was heard and the man's face distorted and he screamed arg. He jumped back but couldn't because Alex stepped on his toes and used his finger crusher to move and crushed his finger bones. Bastard! Fight dirty! The man screamed and tried to punch him, but Alex made a chopping gesture and hit his wrist and deflected the trajectory of the punch and pulled back his left fist, hitting him hard in the stomach. The scarred man's round and greasy stomach rumbled a little. A huge pressure surged from his back, and a circular-shaped hole appeared on the back of his clothes, and the man vomited. He started to feel dizzy. "Give up," Alex said gruffly. "You don't stand a chance from the start." "What do you mean?" the scarred man asked with a dumbfounded expression as he felt quite weak and dizzy. "The dagger you were holding was poisoned, and the poison had seeped into your body through the cut. The more you struggle, the weaker you become." The scarred man looked at Alex with wide eyes filled with horror and disbelief. Alex chuckled at the man's reaction and rubbed his hair and said, "I remembered, you said I can't even touch a single strand of hair, but now I'm not just touching it. I'll take some of it as well," Alex muttered as his red eyes glowed under the dimly lit room, and grabbing a strand of hair, he pulled it mercilessly. "I'm going to pull every strand of your hair out," the man screamed, and a groan of pain echoed throughout the room. The man guarding the place flinched at the voice. "The leader is sure enjoying it a lot," one of them said. "Ha ha ha. What's new about that? Did you forget how cruel our leader is? He would break the bones one by one and then enjoy watching the man beg in pain." The man spoke and was about to laugh when something hit him, causing him to lose consciousness. Chapter 38, A Beast Must Be Treated as a Beast. After intense howls and screams, a figure kneeling on the ground remained motionless with a vacant and lifeless look. His throat seemed to burst after screaming loudly due to being tortured by the maniac who sat in front of him with an angelic smile. Blood dripped and flowed from his head. Flowers were plucked and torn without any mercy until the colorful garden turned into a gloomy desert. If this wasn't enough, the man stepped on his knee and toes, breaking them one by one while keeping count. "So, Baldy, tell me, how did you feel about undergoing a heavenly session offered by me? Will you spread my name far and wide?" Alex said with a big smile. Seeing the man not responding and looking at him with a pitiful look, Alex spoke with a cold tone. "Hey, don't you see that this old man is asking you a question? Did your parents teach you to listen to your elders? Do you want me to rip out your teeth and tear out your tongue?" Alex said in a cold tone. "No, no," the man screamed and almost peed his pants and started crying in fear. Never in his life did he imagine that he would reach such a state. A highly respected disciple rank warrior had been tortured in this manner. If others were to find out how he was able to see his face in front of others, they would mock him to death. Furthermore, this demon had taken away his hair, leaving him bald. "Tisk, tisk," Alex clicked his tongue and spoke in an annoyed tone. "Your tolerance level is really low. Where did you get the guts to do this kind of thing when you can't stand the torture done to you?" The scarred man couldn't answer Alex's question and just let him mock him. It was still better than being tortured and killed by this demon. "Now, scarred man, tell me, who are you? Don't you think you can fool me with that big scar and bandit-like appearance? If bandits like you can reach the rank of disciple in a backward kingdom like this, then this country would have already perished," Alex asked in a menacing voice. The scarred man opened his mouth to say something, but couldn't get it out due to searing pain. He gulped and spoke in a soft, painful voice, filled with regret. "You're right. I'm not a bandit. In my prime, I was just a small battalion commander of Brigade Kingdom. Due to injury, I was forced to retire early, but my work didn't end with the retirement. As Nevin's condition worsened, they didn't want to waste any time conquering it and thought of another way to sate their wealth. The mines around here aren't under any noble territory, so they told me to form a small team and gather a huge group of bandits and transport the minerals. At first we were only involved in mineral smuggling, but some people tried to come here and take over the mines. We defeated them, and those we found good material on, we sold them into slavery. Our operation began to grow along with the members. We made the surrounding villagers work as miners. Meanwhile, many of my members began attacking and looting travelers and taking them as slaves." Alex's eyes grew sharper and fiercer the more he listened to the scum before him. This moron was a commander who fought on the battlefield, and yet he didn't know the value of life. What do you do with the slaves? Alex asked. That? The scarred man stuttered and trembled a little as he saw Alex's gaze and knew that the next words could provoke the demon. We used to transport them in brigade and sell them at auctions, and if we choose someone we like, we. The man shuddered as he saw Alex's eyes turn blood red and his breathing become heavy. Good. You are a good man. Now I understand why you bandits think like real men. According to you, if you force a woman to have sex with someone, they will become men. What a good idea. I was amazed after hearing your legendary exploits. Alex clapped his hands trying to contain his anger. Max, is it over? Alex shouted. Yes, Your Highness. Max shouted. After parting ways with Alex, they keep a low profile to take advantage of the opportunity to take control of the mine. Before Max and Ben attacked, no one was able to offer the slightest resistance. On Alex's side, there were 20 well-trained soldier-ranked squires, while on the bandits' side, there were barely any ranked warriors. Within half an hour, they eliminated the entire group of bandits and took control of the mine. Alex grabbed the chain that was on the ground and put it on the burning table, and after heating it up, he pulled the scarred man out and wrapped the chain around his neck. The man screamed in pain as his neck began to burn and many blisters formed, but Alex didn't care and dragged him like a dog on the ground. Max opened the door and looked at Alex's angry look and somehow guessed what might happen. Spending some time with Alex could allow me to naturally sense some things about him. Alex can tolerate theft, burglary, or harassment and would simply dismiss these crimes with a small punishment. But kidnapping, slave trading, rape, and human trafficking. If you are caught doing these things, he will make your life a living hell until you die. And even your soul may not live in peace after death because he didn't even let the dead body rest in peace. Tie up the bandits, round up the villagers, the miners, and those who have been enslaved. They will be the judges. Take him out, Alex said and walked forward patting Max. But he turned around to see Max picking up the scarred man but flinched at the cold gaze of Alex. Your Highness, I will bring him, Max replied in a confused tone. Just drag him across the ground. A beast should be treated like a beast. Besides, if you had listened to his stories, I'm sure you would have already cut and quartered his body into countless pieces. Alex spoke and turned to leave. Chapter 39, The Legendary Miner. Under the intense and scorching sun shining in the sky, a huge crowd of about 500 people had gathered before a small cliff that jutted out. Most of them were busy with mining while the villagers were busy with their normal daily lives. But an hour ago, the bells rang indicating that they had to gather at the bandits' base. Generally, it always rang at the end of the month when everyone had to gather here to give some daily necessities and money to these bandits. And then the bandits would pick some people for me or do something else like play with them or sell them as slaves. Once selected to work as a miner, the family must prepare to burn incense in their name before the grave because no one returns home after being kidnapped. It's not that mining is dangerous and there's a risk to life, rather it was these beasts that made people's lives a nightmare, having to work day and night without proper rest and food until their last breath. Even a moment of rest is enough for them to be brutally whipped. Who will be able to raise their voice against them? Who will be able to voice their grievance? Those who now lie beneath the grave bed. As they stood in a civilized line, as if they had been trained in fear, they looked up with their lifeless gaze, but seeing the scene before them, a hint of anticipation and hope began to blossom. At the side of the cliff about 100 people knelt down, and in front of them, 3 people were hanged with chains. And in front of them stood a man, a young boy with long blonde hair who with his hawk-like gaze looked at them with a serious expression. Looking at the people gathered here, Alex spoke loudly, My dear villagers and citizens of Nevin, before I say anything, I want to ask for an apology from you. Alex spoke and bowed his head in respect and the soldiers behind him followed his idea. The king sent me to attend to your complaint. It was a pity that the report arrived late, but as soon as we received it, His Majesty sent me with a squad to provide you with the justice and freedom you deserve. The people kneeling before you are scum and human skin who have made your life a nightmare. I would have killed them, but it was not my job to decide the punishment. I give you the freedom to choose whatever punishment you see fit. People looked at each other with questioning glances and wondered what to do. Their lifeless eyes began to shine with life and vigor. They did not want to miss this opportunity. An older woman in her 60s walked over. Her face was full of wrinkles and she was having a hard time even walking. Alex walked up to the woman and offered her a supporting hand. I want to whip that bastard who killed my son. I want him whipped until he loses all his blood, until his last breath. I want him to know the pain and suffering my son went through until he died." The woman spoke with tears in her eyes. When her only son, who was her support, died, she wanted to end her life to free herself from the suffering, but she did not do so. Instead, she prayed to God to give her a chance to punish that person. As the saying goes, it may be late for God to hear our calls, but He is not on the darkness of our supplications and sufferings. She finally got the chance. With her trembling hands, she pulled the whip and hit the person. The man's horrible scream resounded, and following the woman's idea, many took whips and started beating the man unconscious. Alex signaled her man to finish the job as she looked at the remaining 3 who were the leaders of the pack. But Alex did not touch them and simply threw them into the hungry crowd, who beat them to death, giving them a gruesome death. She gulped. Alex gulped and wiped the sweat from his forehead as he saw the fierceness of the common people. "Of course, one should never anger the mobs, otherwise they'll beat you to tears," Alex said as he looked around the group to see if there were any chickens hiding around. As he examined the people one by one, his eyeball widened so much that it almost popped out of its socket. Seeing the man's state, he yelled, "What the fuck? Name, Hugo. Rank, none. Class, none. Talent, mining potential, high." Alex rubbed his eyes a few times as he saw so much talent and potential. Talent and potential are completely different things. While talent shows how skilled a person can be in a particular area or what field their talent lies in, potential can be said to be the level of strength one can reach without a bottleneck. If it were just about talent, talent can be found in many things such as housework, embroidery, writing, and such things. But in most cases, individuals like this have low to no potential in terms of fighting, and generally, people with combat-oriented talent have high potential. But this guy was not only talented in mining, but also had high potential, which made Alex cry. "Goddess! What is this? What kind of joke is fate playing on me? I have low to medium potential even though I have the blood of an emperor, while this guy has high potential even though his talent lies in mining. Isn't this a blatant injustice? Now, what do you want me to do? Turn him into a legendary miner, just like in those RPG games, give him a pickaxe and ask him to dig on the battlefield?" Alex started to get a headache. He wanted to cry and voice his complaint, but he knew that would only make him feel more hurt. So, he ordered his people to kidnap the future legendary miner while ordering them to make preparations for the mine. Chapter 40, Handing over the tax to enter the city. Alex calmed down and got down to business. He selected a handful of individuals and picked a boss from among them who could take on the role and organize the entire city by establishing a power structure. Now it was time to increase the mining production. There were many reasons for the low production in Nevin: lack of workers, lack of good facilities, and smugglers who took the minerals and sold them to other kingdoms right under their noses. The mines in Godavari are a bit different. In the eastern part, they have to be mined from underground, while on the northeastern side there are many steep rocky mountains whose rocks are full of minerals. Alex guessed that it could be a huge meteorite or a natural iron vein, or there could be a volcano millions of years ago that erupted and spewed iron-rich lava. Because of its rock structure, it is quite difficult to break it down with normal workers. If there had been a mage, he could have burned a part of it and cooled it quickly, causing cracks in it. Alex asked the mirror makers to make a highly concentrated mirror with a high focal length that could concentrate light rays into a single point. The principle of reflection of convex and concave lenses, which was taught to all students at school. "Is everything ready?" shouted Alex. "Yes. Yes." Hearing everyone shout that the assembly was finished, he signaled to the man to take off the black clothes that covered them. At Alex's call, they removed the blankets, and as soon as they removed them, a highly concentrated ray of light shone and fell on a piece of rock. Thus many rays of light fell on the rocks, which concentrated a beam of sunlight on a certain spot, and soon the rock started heating up with a crackling sound. "What kind of witchcraft is this?" "No, it's not witchcraft. It must be the power of God." "What magic?" The villagers who saw this started chatting among themselves. Alex laughed hearing the villagers' words and thought of his master's words in his past life: "Science is nothing but the magic of the universe." After heating it up to a certain degree, Alex asked to cool it down by pouring water on it. As soon as water was poured, small cracks formed in it. Alex's signal. When they hit it with a pickaxe, they found that it was quite easy to break the rocks compared to before, and they can take out the minerals much more efficiently than before with less effort. With this, Alex gathered the things here, and after explaining things, He took a man who would soon be called a legendary miner with him and left the town, leaving behind the crowd who thanked him and remained bowing their heads until his figure disappeared. A group of people dressed in patched cloaks and on horseback were advancing towards the town. Alex yawned with a bored expression, but upon seeing the town, his body was revitalized and he signaled his men to increase their speed. Woo, yak, wah, yak, with loud sounds of horse hooves, they entered the town that didn't seem quiet and gloomy like the previous one, and at least it could be called a town as people were walking towards their daily jobs while the shops, supermarkets, and businesses seemed to be doing well. As soon as Alex and his men passed the city gate, he was stopped by 3 men who stared at them. "Any problems?" Alex asked, looking at the men. "Taxes," one of them said. "What tax?" Alex asked with a confused expression. "Don't you know that anyone who enters Letitia City has to pay us the tax?" The man spoke in an irritated tone. Max was about to lash out, but Alex stopped him. Alex took out a silver coin and handed it to the man. The man nodded in satisfaction. "But by the way, what's the reason for the tax, sir?" Alex asked in a respectful tone. So you're new here. Since you willingly gave us money, I'll tell you one thing. This entire city belongs to my boss and our gang, errand riders. This is just a protection fee we charge everyone who enters, and if you want to stay here, you'll have to pay us more fees." Alex frowned and asked, "This city belongs to you, so what about the city lord?" You're asking about that half-breed. He's nothing more than a lackey who danced on the boss's orders." "Okay," Alex said and gave a sweet smile. Ben, seeing the smile, gulped and muttered under his breath, "He's going to switch to bandit mode again." Alex and his gang looked for a tavern. Alex was eager to get some rest. For a guy like him, who has already enjoyed the life of modern technology, traveling for days on horseback is quite cumbersome. He already misses the TV, the air conditioning, the smartphones, and his mangas and animes. He will make sure to prepare a comfortable bus for him when he returns. "Damn, moving from place to place under the scorching sun is killing me," Alex muttered as he entered the tavern and ordered some food. It took around 2 days from the capital to the place, but along the way, Alex visited each village and solved the problems of the people and helped solve the problems that the people were facing that delayed their journey by 8 days. While eating, Alex gathered information about the bandits. While they were enjoying their meal, Alex learned about Aaron's rider gang. According to them, the money that Aaron's riders collect goes to Dorda, which surprised him a bit. "That bastard is creating trouble even after he dies, and I have to clean up his dirty work." Shaking his head, Alex muttered in a surprised tone. He didn't know how the news of Dorda's death hadn't reached there. "Now I have to arrange the new services," he muttered, rubbing his forehead. Alex, who was listening to the people's pleas, suddenly saw Max coming back with a big, swollen face, and he seemed to have been beaten quite badly. Although he only had a small bruise, Alex was surprised that there was someone who could hurt him. Chapter 41, I've come to light your cigarette. Alex called Max to sit beside him as he looked at his wound and asked with a cold expression. "Max, who gave you this beating?" Max scratched his head in embarrassment and said, "Your Highness, don't worry about me, I'm fine. I let them beat me up, that's why I have these little scratches," Max said while smiling bitterly. "Why?" Alex asked with a curious expression. Knowing Max and his temper, he could destroy this entire city if he wanted to. "Your Highness, as you asked, I was looking for information about Aaron's riders, but I was unlucky enough to run into one of them. Finding the opportunity, I beat him up and tried to ask him the details, but then a lot of gang members came to fight me. Seeing that the situation was getting out of hand, I thought of a plan and decided to surrender myself so they could take me back to the base," Max narrated. "So, you just came from their base?" Alex asked. Max nodded and began to narrate his story in more detail. "After I was taken to the base, I saw approximately 40 people there going about their usual business. They are also engaged in drug dealing and receiving commissions for assassinations. I told them to stop these activities, otherwise my lord will punish them." He laughed and said that he has the support of Marquis Sten and Dorda, and that Sten openly supports him, and what can an insignificant, statusless human do? After that, I was beaten up and he gave me a chance to redeem myself. He told me to ask my lord to come here and light a cigar. I was sure that we would not be able to escape the city without his permission, since his men were all over the city. Without his permission, not even a bird would be able to fly. Besides, I was sure that we were just ants and that he could crush us at any moment. PFTTTTT. Alex laughed along with the other soldiers. Wiping away his tears and controlling his urge to laugh, he asked, So, he wanted me to come over and light a cigar for him. Hey, did you all hear what he said? The soldier laughed, pitying the man and praying that in the next life he could develop some brains. These people had already burned incense for the chief of the riders, Aaron, but they didn't think that the man's soul could rest in peace even after he died. Alex turned his head to Ben and said, "Now, do you understand why I don't reveal my identity and say that I'm the king? If the people of other kingdoms found out that I'm fighting thugs instead of soldiers at the borders, what reputation would be left of me?" Ben nodded as he heard Alex's words. Along the way, he always pestered Alex to reveal his identity. Not only would this make things easier, but it would also spread his fame around Nevin and people would see him in a new light. But now he understands that doing that would only show the other kingdom an ugly and weak side of the kingdom. A kingdom where the king has to take care of small matters like this is a ridiculous affair, and Alex would be mocked from all sides. "So my soldiers say," Alex shouted. "Shall we visit that man and show him some respect by lighting his cigar, shall we?" Alex asked. "Yes, and some of you stay and take care of Hugo and the others we brought," Alex said and asked them to feel better. The soldiers shouted so loud that it shook the entire tavern. Ben slapped his forehead as he saw the soldiers' excitement. All of the men have been influenced by King's bandit nature. Ben was afraid that Alex might be a reincarnation of King of Bandits, who ruled a huge bandit organization in his previous life. He knew that Alex was going to raid the place and take all the money. The old man who was the head of the tavern ran up to Alex and spoke in a worried tone, "Kid, please don't do anything rash. I know that your blood is boiling, and because of your hot blood you wanted to fight Aaron Ryder, but please refrain from doing so. You'll only get into trouble." Alex shook his head, took his hand and said, "Uncle, thank you for your kind treatment and hospitality. What I'm going to do is my job. I can't shirk from it. Don't worry, I won't die, I promise," Alex said with a genuine smile. Alex didn't care too much about values. He only had one belief. Respect those who respect you, crush those who try to spit on you. Inside a huge warehouse in the center of the city, a group of people had set up their base. The warehouse was previously used to store granaries and food, but now it was used to conduct all sorts of illegal activities. On the other side of the warehouse, there was a huge pub that was open for those who wanted some recreation and entertainment, while the inside was the hideout for bandits. All the money and lots were kept inside. Aaron was the head of the bandit group of Rider Aaron. He was a warrior with the rank of squire who was formerly part of the Knights of Marries. With no one threatening his position in the city, he rose to power within a year, establishing his mini empire with his strength, forcing others to submit to his power. He poured a glass of wine and took a sip while smiling in satisfaction, but his happiness didn't last long as he heard a loud sound that shook the entire building. "Who?" He stood up and shouted. A man rushed in and spoke while shaking in fear. "Boss, we have a problem. A group of bandits have raided this place." Aaron choked and spat out the wine he was drinking and said, "I'm the biggest bandit here. Who the hell had the balls to invade my place? I don't know my boss. They came in a group and they call themselves Bandit Slayer, a group of bandits who kill other bandits. Let's go see it." Aaron muttered and took out a huge machete given to him by Marries. He walked towards the upper floor with an expression of slaughtering the enemy. But as soon as he entered a huge room that was a place for people to drink, he frowned as he saw that all of his people had been crushed to the ground and were lying on the floor in a pool of blood. Inside the room, a man was sitting on the chair bending his leg and looked at him with a sinister smile that made him shudder. "So, Sir Aaron, you have finally graced us with your presence. Who are you?" Aaron asked. "I am Rex. Your humble servant, whom you wanted to light your cigar, is finally here, sir. You see that this boy of mine did not know the vastness of the sky and offended you, and I have come to offer you my services as an apology," Alex said as he pushed Max forward. "Sir, please come. I'm going to offer you a special service that you'll remember for the rest of your life. Only if you stay alive after that," Ben added softly. "Kekekekek." Alex's eyes flashed fiercely and he laughed in a squeaky metallic tone that echoed throughout the building. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelists. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 42, Visit to the City Lord. Alex scanned Aaron with his eyes of truth but found nothing unusual. These bastards only know how to bully the weak. In front of strong people, They behave docilely, and with their support, they go wild doing all the dirty things to satisfy their owner like a dog and lick his shoes. Come, sir. Come and sit here, Alex said, waving his hand. Aaron wanted to cut these men down with his machete, but seeing that each of them had the rank of a squire, his hands shook and his eyes widened in shock and disbelief. Aaron gulped nervously and asked, "Who are you? You are not a simple man. You have a whole squad of fierce people with you, didn't I tell you? I am your lighter, the one you asked to light the cigar," Alex said and pushed Max forward. "You?" Aaron stumbled and fell on his back as he saw the man who had been beaten up pretty good just an hour ago and was now returning to his lord. Sir? Aaron remembered hearing Max talk about his master. "Wait. Are you a noble? If you are, can you look for Lord Sten? Why are you looking for me?" Aaron spoke with a fearful look. The soldiers behind Alex tried to control their urge to laugh. Alex sighed and spoke with a cold tone. "Hey, tie that bastard up, strip him naked, and hang him in front of the city lord's mansion. And yes, dip him in oil. We'll light a cigar for him," Alex said with a devilish grin. "While a few of you take the loot. I mean, take the money and distribute it among the people. Now, let's pay the city lord a visit. Shall we?" Alex asked as Aaron tried his best to resist but ended up with broken hands and legs. In front of the city lord's mansion, a huge, fat man was hung naked and a large mass of people had gathered to see who that person was, but when they saw the figure, their eyeballs nearly popped out of their sockets. "Isn't that the head of Aaron Riders?" one of them muttered. "I don't know, I haven't seen him for a while. I think this man tried to imitate Aaron and was punished here." "Yes, you're right. This may be the reason. Oh, poor soul. What's going to happen to him?" As people came up with all sorts of strange conclusions and rumors, they trembled at the thought of that man's fate. Most of them thought that it was Aaron Ryder's fault and that this man was going to be brutally punished. As the mobs and masses murmured about the matter, inside the city lord's mansion, another storm blew. Alex sat on a chair while a man knelt on the ground. He was so scared that he couldn't lift his head. The man was drenched in sweat. It was just an ordinary day, while he was busy with his chores, when this group of men forcibly raided his house, and before he could ask them what was going on, they slapped him over and over again. Every time he asked a question, they slapped him. His face had swollen like a pig's due to the merciless beating. "I heard that you are the city lord," Alex asked in a gruff tone that sent a chill down his spine. The man simply nodded. "Tell me, since when does the city lord, instead of managing the city, side with the bandits?" Alex asked. But the man was too scared to answer and kept quiet, which upset Alex. "If you don't answer my question before I count to 10, you won't be able to answer any questions in this life." The man gulped and was about to answer when he heard a loud commotion coming from the other side of the house. Opening the door with a loud bang, a 4-year-old girl ran towards the city lord calling him, "Daddy, Daddy." Behind her, a woman and some maids ran and tried to pull her back, but she was crying, wanting to play with her father. All of the city lady's hair stood up in fear and she ordered people to take her daughter away, but she saw her daughter crying loudly. She was about to touch Alex's foot and ask him to spare her family. Alex raised her hands to stop them from taking the girl away. As soon as the girl was freed from their clutches, she ran towards her father and hugged him. With a sweet and innocent voice, she said, "Daddy, I wanted to play with you but Mommy wouldn't let me come here." "Daddy, why are you on the floor?" Alex chuckled and said, "Little angel. Your daddy is playing with me." The girl flinched a little at the sight of the stranger, but seeing Alex looking at her, she asked, "Who are you? So cute." Alex muttered to herself as she saw the girl's cute puppy dog eyes. "I'm your big brother. Now come and hug this big brother," Alex said, extending her hands. The girl hesitated for a moment but saw Alex's bright ruby red eyes, which made her remember the ornaments, and looked at her father, and after getting his confirmation, she stepped forward and gave Alex a gentle hug. "Host, you should be careful. You shouldn't develop these kinds of fetishes. Just because there's no FBI in this world, you shouldn't chase after Lawless." "Shut up. When did I run after her? I like her as a sister, you moron." "Sorry, the host system has no ass or hole, so you can't call me that." Alex gritted his teeth, shaking off the system's growls as he activated the eyes of truth. He looked at Alicia. Name, Alicia. Class, none. Talent, state and civil management potential, low. Alex laughed inwardly after finding a precious gem. Nevin is lacking talented people who are good at public sector management. What's more, Even the city lord also has the same talent but has no potential. With good education and learning, Alex was certain that Alicia could become a good asset to Nevin. Furthermore, Alex had taken a liking to this girl. While caressing her, Alex thought of his brother and sister from this world and wished for them to have a healthy relationship, but he knew that since they were born enjoying wealth and status, Alex was worth a fart in his eyes. Furthermore, in influential families, having more siblings is one more problem that adds to the others. Chapter 43. The gods are certainly merciful. While a warm and cordial discussion took place inside the city lord's mansion, without the common people knowing about the discussion that was going on, they simply stood in front of the mansion staring at the pitiful guy. If even one of the people had known the name of the naked sculpture, they would have started throwing eggs and spitting at the naked man instead of showing mercy. Finally, after a long session of waiting, the large door of the city mansion opened and the city lord walked towards them accompanied by a few strangers. The crowd looked at the city lord expectantly. They knew that the city lord was Aaron's dog and was about to punish him. The entire place fell silent and all the mutterings and ramblings disappeared as if they had never existed. The city lord stood in front of them and looked at the people with a nervous and anxious look. Cough. Cough. Hello. It's a pleasure to meet you all again. Dear citizens of Letitia, I am Aaron, the city lord, and I now stand before you to address your old grievances. I find it difficult to contain the happiness that overflows my heart. As of today, I am pleased to announce that we are free from the poisonous clutches of Aaron Ryder's gang. As Aaron's voice echoed and reverberated throughout the place, people's eyes widened and they thought that they were either having an illusion or that the city lord had taken some wrong medicine. Many people were even murmuring and warning each other not to react as this might be a trap to kill those who wanted to get rid of Aaron. After all, how can this dog bite its own master? Seeing no reaction from the masses, Aaron frowned and felt a pain in his heart. Even Alex shook his head and sighed. This man has completely lost the trust of the people. Anyway, it was his fault to begin with. Aaron bit his lips as he felt humiliated. He still accepted that a man like him did not deserve anyone's trust, but he would not give up so easily. Aaron knew that he had failed as the lord of the city, but he could do nothing. If he had to choose between the safety of his family or death for opposing Aaron, he had chosen the second option without a second thought, and that was the reason why Alex forgave him and gave him a second chance. Furthermore, he had not committed any crime and his job was only to turn a blind eye to what was happening in the city. Aaron raised his chin and fell to his knees. I know, I have failed as the lord of the city. Although I can give an excuse to do this for my family, it did not prevent the blatant injustice that had happened to all of you. Still, I ask you to forgive me and give me a chance to redeem myself, and please believe in my words. The man who is tied up here is Aaron, the person who is responsible for making all of our lives miserable. His gang had been destroyed by special forces sent by the king and they had helped us and got rid of all our troubles. Aaron bowed again and stood up, raising his hand towards Alex, asking him to take his place. Alex smiled, looking at the crowd, and introduced himself. Dear citizens of Nevin, I wish you good luck in the future. Today will mark the beginning of a new era for Nevin. The king had created a small elite squad that would visit places where they received reports of people in trouble, and you may not know it, but Dorda and Marcianus Sten had already been killed for treason. The people, hearing the man's words, staggered back and gaped in shock. Even Aaron, whose eyes were lifeless, opened wide in horror. He couldn't believe that such a prominent figure died and that no one received such devastating news. Alex smiled at his expression and walked towards Aaron. Standing in front of him, he pulled out the tattered clothes which he stuffed into his mouth and asked with a playful smile, So, Aaron, tell me, is the treatment to your liking or do you want to add any more changes? Aaron bit his lips in frustration. He knew that his life would come to an end, but he didn't want to submit like this, and twisting his tongue, he spat at Alex. Alex noticed the movement of Aaron's lower jaw and stepped aside to avoid the fight, but his expression turned ugly and he pulled Aaron's hair, staring him straight in the eyes. Aaron's entire existence seems to tremble as he meets Alex's gaze and feels that his entire existence is in danger and he will be devoured by those terrifying eyes. The gods are certainly merciful, Alex muttered. You're lucky I haven't woken up yet. If I could use mana, I'd crush every bit of your bones and peel off your skin and then burn you and skin you alive. But this wouldn't end like this. I'll heal you back up and we'll start the fun again. Aaron's entire body shook and all of his hair stood up in terror at the sound of his sword. But Alice, you're one lucky bastard, Alex said, clicking his tongue. Alex gestured with his hand and upon receiving his signal, His man grabbed a few buckets and doused Aaron in a liquid. Aaron frowned when he smelled the oil in the liquid and wanted to scream, but his voice caught in his throat when he heard Alex's voice. "You wanted me to light your cigar for you, didn't you? Since I'm a kind person, I'll fulfill your last wish." Alex spoke as he grabbed the matches while one of his men forcefully shoved a cigar into Aaron's mouth and held his chin so he couldn't spit it out. Although people shuddered a little at the sight of the bizarre scene, it didn't deter them from watching. After all, public execution was nothing new in this day and age. Alex lit the matches, burning the tip of the cigar, and smoke began to rise out. As Aaron choked on the cigar, Alex looked at Aaron one last time. "Repent in hell." This was the last thing he heard before Alex threw the lit matches at him and his entire body caught fire. Following this, anguished screams echoed before the city lord's mansion. Chapter 44, Production. Alex, after a long journey attacking bandits and helping the citizens, had finally returned to the capital. Except for him, everyone felt that the trip was rather short. The round-trip timetable from the Godavari mines, which should have taken 4 to 5 days, had been extended to 9 days. When Alex arrived at the city, he slowed down his horse and decided to inspect how things had changed during his absence. When he arrived near the city walls, he saw a lot of people working on reinforcing them. All the cracks in the wall were sealed, and some parts were torn down completely, and the new walls were built in those places. It was a pity that there were no magicians in Nevin, and it would still take a month to successfully integrate Ismana heart so that the wall could not be reinforced with magic. Still, something was better than nothing. Alex looked at the masons and craftsmen who were working on the wall and the roads, which were being supervised by the noble servant whom Alex had entrusted with the task. The workers and the working class, who had been out of work for years, now had a lot of work on them. At least, for now, they can get the money to live their lives and meet daily needs. Alex scanned and observed the scenic beauty of the city. The streets were fairly clean now, and the gloomy streets were beginning to fill with people entering and leaving their houses. The shabby shops have been brought back into operation, although they were still in a state of disrepair. The inns and taverns had also been opened for the influx of people who could gather after the hard work. The sadness was slowly disappearing, followed by the arrival of jubilation and joy among the people. Slowly but steadily, the capital was returning to normal. Whenever people saw Alex and a group of men, they would occasionally stop to bow out of courtesy and respect. Max and Ben can be said to be popular figures who are tasked with ensuring the city's safety and maintaining law and order for now until they can gather more personnel. As soon as Alex entered the castle, a figure appeared and jumped at Alex. Alex smiled, extended his hand, and pulled Riaya into his embrace. "My lord, what took you so long?" Riaya said with a cute pout as she rested her head on Alex's chest. Alex simply stroked her long, soft hair and said, "I had some miscellaneous matters to take care of on my way. I helped some people and punished some wrongdoers on my way." Riaya exclaimed and showed a gentle smile with a knowing expression. "So, how are things going around here?" Alex asked Riaya. "We have already used the money we received to balance the outflow and inflow of money. Construction and building are also going quite well. The only problem we have now is with the merchants." Alex's mood soured when Riaya told him about them. Previously, due to the poor state of Nevin, all the merchants packed their things and left Nevin. Merchants are valuable assets of every kingdom. After all, without them, a kingdom cannot import or export things, as merchants are the most important channel for the exchange of things. Riaya, please try to arrange a meeting with them. I will talk to them. By the way, Riaya, I received some donations when I came back. Those good people were so good that they gave us everything they had earned with their hard work for the growth of the kingdom. Alex spoke with a solemn expression that showed his respect for those poor souls who donated their money they earned after working very hard. While Riaya made a shocked expression and thanked God for the kind and charitable people. "Oh, may God bless these noble and kind people who donated their wealth for the people's cause," Riaya prayed sincerely. Max and Ben's lips twitched uncontrollably upon hearing Alex's words. Donations, kind and hard-working people. What kind of shit is this? This man raided and looted every bandit and robber he encountered on his way. Some bandits even doubted their own existence and wondered if they were bandits or him. The bandits cried tears of blood upon seeing the thick-skinned Alex calling himself a saint who is robbing for the sake of the country. Hearing Alex's words, they wanted to rush over and shut his mouth so that he couldn't continue praising the bandits. "Riaya, I have brought the iron ores. Is everything ready?" asked Alex. Riaya nodded and led Alex to a secluded spot at the back of the castle. Alex entered the ground and looked at a huge oval-shaped furnace with many beehive cones sprouting from it. The production of blast furnaces according to Alex's instructions had finally been carried out. Alloys are an unexplored field in this world. The alloys that people knew of were generally of superior metals such as adamantium. While people neglected low-level metals, Alex knew that by combining and creating bronze and brass alloys and using steel to make weapons, they would gain an advantage over their neighboring kingdom and have strong and sturdy weapons. For low-level kingdoms, iron is the primary material to make ores since there are no good blacksmiths in this kind of place that can make the artifacts, and if by any chance a good blacksmith is born, kindly would take him and treat him like nobles. Steel is quite easy to make if one knows the procedure properly, and after some experiments on a smaller scale, Alex was finally able to produce a steel stake. Generally, the blacksmith's job was to mine the metal, clean the impurities and make weapons. But following this process is quite cumbersome since he had to take a fillet of ore, refine and purify it and then start hammering it to make the weapon. Most of the time was spent mining metal, but what if Alex could mine the metal in massive quantities and provide them with ready-made materials to make weapons in one go? Using the furnace, iron was mined in large quantities and steel was made. Steel is not as easy to make as it seems and he would have to use all of his previous knowledge of metallurgy to achieve it. Getting carbon steel is easy enough, but getting higher quality stainless steel, which is one of the densest and strongest metals, will be difficult. Still, he laughed at the sight of the things in front of him. Hey, in a few days, I'm going to change all of Nevin. Chapter 45, Supervising the Army Training and Meeting the Merchants. The training ground, which seemed deserted a month ago, was now packed with hot-blooded youths and some middle-aged men who were full of spirit and each of them had a fiery gaze. Several people were practicing on the field, and all of them had been divided into groups according to weapons. Archers, swordsmen, spearmen, defenders. And many recruits have joined the army recently and are going through basic training guided by Mordic. All of them followed a strict training regimen set by Alex. While the archers were practicing with the shooting targets, the swordsmen were practicing with swords. While the spearmen and the defenders were practicing together. While the spearmen were stabbing their spears, the defenders were using the wooden shields to block their attack. While they were busy training, Alex entered the training ground and everyone stopped their practice and now looked down on him. Alex looked at the soldiers and was quite satisfied with their improvements. After purging the nobles and settling scores with them, Alex's requests for soldiers and weapons received a warm welcome among the masses and citizens of Nevin. That was what he thought. But seeing their distrustful and angry looks at first, Alex realized that many people had joined the training camp because of his promise that none of the soldiers' families would go hungry and that they would receive their well-deserved salary at the end of the month. Because of this, most of them were forced to join the camp by their parents or due to some circumstances, but they still hadn't trusted their king. But after practicing for a month their attitude had changed and everyone had become quite docile. Alex was never lenient with his own training and trained with the soldiers whenever he had time, demonstrating his will and determination and soon earning their respect. Alex stood on the platform and his voice spread throughout the field. Don't train like a muscle head to the point that your head becomes full of muscles. A soldier needs to move while taking into account many things: the current position of the squad he is in, the mission he is assigned and the dangers he is going to face in assessing his strength and that of the enemies. A war is not won by one soldier but by an army of soldiers. You have to know the situation of your allies in order to understand the situation they are in and be able to help others. On the battlefield, everyone must decide for themselves and think about what action would be most appropriate considering the situation they are in. It's okay to run away, but only if you dare to come back and take back the enemy's head. Listen to me well, don't be fearless because only he who knows the true value of life and only he who fears death can conquer death. But even if after trying our best we fail, then let's just face death with a smile on our face. After giving the soldiers some words of wisdom and making their blood boil, he started making hand signs. He stomped the ground with his foot twice. The soldiers heard the sound of feet twice and separated into two squads. It was a rather fast movement, but Alex still noticed some stiffness in their movements and said, in training, we don't just train our body and mind, but we also learn how to use various things to deal with the situation, such as hand study, signs, signals, tactics, enemy formation. We have to practice all this until our body gets used to things and they become engraved in our bones as instincts and the body moves on its own when it receives the signal. Did you hear my words? Alex shouted after his long and passionate speech. Yes, what? Haven't you eaten properly? "Why are you barking like dogs instead of roaring?" Alex shouted. "Even my Leo roared better than you," Alex shouted. "Yes, Your Highness, yes, Your Highness." Alex raised his fist, clenched it, and hit his chest. The soldiers who quickly scattered gathered in one place, forming a formation where the defenders were in front, followed by the spearmen, and then the archers in the middle, while the swordsmen were in the back protecting them. Alex opened his clenched fist and hit his shoulder. Following his ideas, the defenders lower their shields while the spearman crouches down, leaving the archers to draw their bows with a fierce expression. Alex took a deep breath and looked at the group of soldiers. A small smile formed on Alex's face as he spoke. "You all are going to be a nightmare, the enemies that will face you." Alex, after supervising the training of the soldiers, was preparing to meet the merchants. The merchant was most likely a nuisance. After Alex's repeated requests, only 4 merchants showed interest in the proposal put forward by Alex. But they only agreed to meet with him and didn't promise anything. Alex was so angry about it that he promised himself that he would try to get revenge on those merchants who ignored him. Most of the merchants seemed to support Amidon and Bright Kingdom, and there was an undercurrent of war that might happen soon. Alex stopped Raya from accompanying him. He didn't want those merchants to see her with their lecherous eyes and drooling saliva, and he didn't want to cut off their heads at the first meeting. "Count Basie, is everything ready?" Alex asked as he walked through the huge and spacious hallway. "Yes, Your Highness. I have already prepared a document together with the team." "Good." As Alex entered, the guards bowed and opened the door. Inside the room sat 4 merchants, and they did not even stand up to greet him except for one. Alex narrowed his eyes and took a look at each of their faces and expressions. They have an expression of disgust, hatred, and boredom. Most of them did not like his recent invention and thought it was absurd. Most of them still think poorly of Nevin and think that it is a corrupt kingdom where people lack even the necessities. Alex tried to join the merchant groups that operated in Nevin previously, but they all raised their heads and swore that they would not take a step towards Nevin, where they had suffered huge losses. "So you think you are wasting your time coming here?" Alex nodded to one of the men who stood up and took a seat. Before Alex could speak, a man with a rough, brown beard sneered, "To what do we owe the pleasure, Your Majesty?" Alex didn't care about his attitude for now and said, "We have invented a new type of material for the construction of weapons and construction materials. We wanted the support of the merchants to help us manage exports and purchase other things." The expressions on the merchants' faces quickly changed when they heard about the new material and still maintained stoic faces. They looked at each other and one of them said, "What is the material? Where did you discover it?" "Sorry, we can't reveal where and how we get the material. The only thing you have to know is that I have something good. You have to negotiate and come to an agreement, and the name of the material is steel," Alex said with a big smile. Chapter 46, Meeting with the Merchants. A few days ago, many merchants began receiving requests to set up their shops in Nevin. It was a direct call-in request from the King of Nevin. But who would dare to place their trust in a fool? Most of them neglected it, but some thought about it and tried to gain information about the recent affairs of Nevin. No one wanted to take a big risk, as those who had previously been in Nevin had either fled to another kingdom or suffered a great loss that they could not recover from. But the information left them in shock. A month ago, the king had awakened from his coma. The first thing he did was kill and purge the corrupt nobles from his estate and gain control over all of Nevin by cleansing it. But that was not the end. He suddenly initiated many social reforms and began gathering an army, which sparked some interest. While some thought about taking the risk, others thought about it and decided to wait and test the waters. After all, they could settle down and trade whenever they wanted. After all, they were the ones who would make the decision. The merchants' brows furrowed and they looked at Alex in confusion. They believed that Nevin had discovered a new mineral, but Alex's explanations on how to make the metal confused them. If it was natural metal, they could pull some strings and manipulate things to get their hands on the mineral, and that's the reason they wasted their time coming here. But things turned out quite different from their expectations. "So, where were we?" Alex's voice brought them out of their thoughts. "Can we see a sample?" one of them asked. Alex nodded and waved his hand. A servant came over with 4 steel fillets and gave one to each merchant. As they looked at the metal, Alex looked at them curiously. Alex knew they would do their best to get the production method, but he wasn't worried about it. The steel he had given them was just cheap carbon steel with a lot of impurities. Still, it was much better than iron. The steel Alex wanted to produce was stainless steel, which is much stronger and lighter than iron, and was used to extract layers and make Damascus steel. The merchants held the metal in their hands, and it felt quite light compared to other metals, and they thought it might be weak compared to other metals used for weapons, but they dismissed those thoughts as they could feel its tensile strength and hardness. Alex smiled as he saw their subtle change in expression. The merchant looked at Alex and started speaking in a sweet tone and sweetened it up. "Your Highness, could you please give us the commission?" "No, can you please give it to us?" The merchants began to argue with him. "What can you offer in return?" Alex asked. One of them stood up and spoke in a powerful tone. "We'll give you 10% of the sale along with a lot of goods. Your Majesty, we'll give you 15%. No, don't listen to him. We'll give you 18%. Alex listened to their offers, trying to hold back the urge to smash their heads. "My men will work day and night to produce them while you bastards will just take them and sell them, and expect me to agree to let you keep almost all of the profits from the sales." Alex looked at the last man who seemed rather docile and asked him what he was offering. The man stood up from his seat and spoke in a respectful tone. "Your Highness, our merchant group is not as big as them and is still in the process of expanding. We are a recent group, so it is still difficult for people to buy everything we sell, so, instead of money, I wanted to propose a material exchange to you. Since your Nevin is working on his internal state, it would be a much-needed material, so we promise to give you the things you asked for in exchange for granting you the rights to sell it. In addition, we also hand over the sale profits to you along with it once we know the sales of this metal." The other merchants laughed at his offer and thought it was nonsense. After all, who can stay away from the lure of money? Taking things, instead of money, who will accept it? Alex thought about the pros and cons with a solemn expression and said, "You can't get exclusive rights to sell the steel and about the exchange. I think I need to have a private discussion with you." The man's mood turned gloomy upon hearing his first words about Alex, but he was shocked upon hearing Alex's last words and said, "Your Highness, did you mean?" Alex nodded. "Yes, we have a deal, though it needs to be discussed further." "What?" everyone shouted. "What nonsense? This is complete nonsense," one of them shouted. "Fucking king, you're just a king of a small estate and you dare to show arrogance," another spoke up. Bassi was about to refute but Alex stopped him. Alex stood up, looked at the man and said, "You said that I'm the king of this small estate. So, let me ask you, do you think you can just leave the castle without my permission? You're forgetting that no matter what happens, I'm still the king and I have thousands of people under my command. Do you think your merchant group will give a shit if I kill you here and throw your corpse into the forest for the beast to feed on?" The man was scared when he saw Alex's cold, chilling gaze. The moment their eyes met, he knew he had crossed a line. "And you barking dogs? Who are you to stop me from choosing which deal to accept? Isn't this what you merchants do? You accept the best offer, you two can go back while," Alex said, pointing his finger at the man already in the cold seat. "For disrespecting the king you will be fined 5,000 gold coins," Bassi shouted next to Alex. "What? Why don't you just loot me?" the man shouted in a panic. "Then you can buy a grave for yourselves, because either you give the coin or you die here," Alex said. Alex knew that these people supported Amidon and the material they were buying would mostly go to Amidon, and Alex wanted to take a look at their attitude towards Nevin and see their disgusting attitude. Alex swore that he would crush these merchant groups as soon as possible, and what would be a better way to destroy the things they invested in. Since war is approaching, Alex will completely destroy Amidon along with these merchants. The man gritted his teeth in anger and finally knotted his hands and promised to offer the fine. After the three of them left, Alex looked at the remains and asked with a smile, "What is your name?" "This humble name is David, Your Highness." Chapter 47, The Swords of the Continent and the Archmages. Alex tore up the paper and threw it into the trash. Just looking at the paper made him angry. On the paper was written a breathing technique that Nevin's soldiers used. It was so useless that it was just a breathing technique that would only help in exhaling and inhaling. The efficiency is the worst of all. If this technique is used, it barely retains any mana. That is why all the Nevin soldiers were useless and are muscleheads, as they cannot use mana efficiently, they only use physical strength. There are two types of mana users. One of them is a warrior. Warriors are aura masters who assimilate mana into their body, strengthening the body with the flow of mana, and after getting used to the mana, they can focus the mana on a particular point to form an aura. Another type is the mage. They use mana by forming circles to store the mana they used while casting spells. The spells used by mages are divided into circles or levels. There's even a third category, which are known as magic swordsmen, who can use low-level spells along with aura on their weapons while fighting, but geniuses like them were quite rare. And on top of that, mastering two things takes quite a bit of time. So, magic swordsmen seem like trash instead of geniuses who can use both spells and aura. The first thing Alex exchanged for the steel were books and various information along with mana stones. After getting the books, Alex spent his time gathering information on other warriors. Alex turned over the book that contained knowledge about various people and powerful people of the world. Many geniuses rise and fall, but the people who were able to permanently engrave their names were given elite status and treated like royalty. There even exists a ranking system where people are ranked. Heavenly geniuses and knights who are masters of aura were known as sort of the continents and were respected regardless of their race or background. And top mages who can cast high-level spells known as archmages. Both titles have a ranking of 10 members each, and members would occasionally fight each other to prove their superiority over others. While there are also geniuses among magic swordsmen, they pale in comparison to the other two, as there was no one at the top. After all, mastering two things at the same time at a young age is quite impossible unless a heaven-defying genius is born. And Alex is by no means a heaven-defying genius, although he can use both aura and spells. It took him years of brutal training to master it, so in a way it's cheating. His wife Christine had a chance to join the Blades of Continent, but unfortunately bad luck fell upon her, or it would be better to say it struck her down and became a burden to her. By the way, who the hell came up with this ranking shit? Wasn't it like your name was listed on the ranking, as if there was a bounty on your head? Challengers will appear every time one joins the crowd. Alex sighed, thinking of all the monsters that lay hidden in this world. Alex didn't want to conquer the world, nor did he plan to conquer the neighboring kingdoms one after one. His only goal was to become stronger so that before messing with him, his opponent would think 1,000 times. Alex sighed and took out a feather. He tried to take a breath on his own. He wasn't foolish enough to offer the breathing technique taught by the goddess. After carefully designing a technique, I decided to try it out first to check its effectiveness. Alex sat cross-legged and began to inhale and exhale rhythmically as he relaxed his concentration. In this technique, one did not need to sense the mana and would simply inhale and exhale it. The inhaled air would circulate throughout the body and then be exhaled with certain minute impurities. One must carry this out until one can sense the mana, and after achieving this, the next step would be the manifestation of the mana, in which one's body would begin to glow with the mana that one took in. While Alex was lost in concentration, Raya entered his room with a cup of tea but was shocked after witnessing the scene. Inside the room, Alex sat cross-legged as his body glowed with a red hue of light as the air around him seemed to condense and envelop him. She could see the mana and particles breaking down around him and then entering him with his inhalation. She couldn't hide her shock at seeing such an illusory scene. She could sense that the breathing technique her lord was using was a much higher level and even more profound technique than her technique. Alex felt someone watching him and stopped her meditation and stood up to see Raya looking at her with a disturbed look. "Raya, what happened?" Alex asked. "My lord, where did you receive such a profound technique from?" Raya asked. "Ah," Alex exclaimed with an understanding expression. "I took it from the treasure vaults and modified it a little," Alex explained. Raya blinked a few times and found it hard to believe, but eventually gave up and overthought it. Staying with him, she learned one thing: he can't be judged with a normal sense. After waking up from the coma, he had completely transformed into a different person. When Alex stood up and walked towards Raya, she suddenly noticed that Alex's upper half was naked. Raya's face flushed red at the sight of his well-toned body along with those perfect abs that weren't bulky like others. "Raya, are you okay?" Raya's heart began to beat faster the closer Alex got to him. This wasn't the first time she had seen her lord's upper body, and in fact, she was the one who mostly bathed her lord when he was an idiot and had already seen her naked, but it was the first time she felt shy. His body is completely different from before, and he looks more like a cute, chubby child, which is in stark contrast to his well-toned body along with his chiseled V-shaped jawline. The current one can be said to be a lady killer. What Raya didn't know was that Alex had been blessed by the goddess of lust, and that in the arsenal lay many abilities that when activated could overthrow many nations. As Alex placed his hand on Raya's forehead, he felt Raya's body had heated up, and before he could ask her, she shook her head and ran away out of shyness. Alex didn't throw her away but instead laughed at the sight of her running away, and with an evil smile, he said, "My cute little bunny, how many days can you run? After all, No matter where you go, you can't escape from me. Soon, this lion will eat you. Roar. A small, cute roar was heard and Alex looked at Leo, who was glaring at him. I'm not talking about a lion like you, Alex muttered as he heard Leo complain about him being the real lion while Alex tried to copy him. Chapter 48, Undercurrents happening everywhere. It was a normal day without any chaos. In the office room of the Kingdom of Right, the rustling sound of papers being turned over could be heard as several women took the documents and examined them. There were tons of documents on each table and each of them had their hands full. The room was filled with beautiful women and there were only 3 men present. And overseeing them was the current Queen of Right, Catherine. With a loud knock, 2 ladies hurriedly entered. Seeing their expressions, Catherine's eyelashes fluttered as a feeling of anxiety began to creep in from within. Amidon's spies had sent a report. There have been movements at the borders and the army seems to have shifted, one of the women said. The funny thing is that the number of soldiers at the borders has decreased. I don't understand their motives. They are advancing and preparing for war, but the number of soldiers seems to be another. The entire room fell silent and all the people present looked at Catherine for answers. Catherine intertwined her fingers and rested her chin on them and closed her eyes for a moment. Ava, I remembered that you reported that there has been an influx of mercenaries recently, he spoke in a heavy voice. Ava nodded. I think that with the loan and money they have gathered from merchants and the neighboring kingdom, they are hiring mercenaries to participate in the war. But aren't mercenaries different from trained soldiers? Mercenaries are completely lawless. Would they make mistakes and disobey orders? One of the women said. Who said they were going to be used as soldiers? Couldn't they be given small missions? The outcome of the war doesn't depend on a single factor. Many small, insignificant details that happen in the shadows can affect the outcome, Catherine said with a solemn expression. Uncle Longard, I heard that you've reported that internal violence in the city is increasing. Longard nodded. I think we need to keep an eye on the mercenaries, and if a situation arises, we should ban them from entering. I'm afraid that some of the mercenaries on Amidon's side will surely try to stir up trouble from here. Hearing Catherine's words, everyone looked at her in disbelief and shock. If what she said is true, then the situation is quite dire and they need to implement some drastic measures. Wright and Nevin are currently in a vulnerable state, and both kingdoms are a large portion of the fortune that everyone wanted. It's possible that Amidon offered the merchants and the neighboring kingdom a share of the profits if they were successful in their business. Hearing Nevin's name, everyone's face was filled with disgust. After all, they all blamed Nevin and the fat idiot prince for Wright's current state. Your Highness, I forgot to tell you that we received Nevin's monthly report, Ava said. Catherine nodded and gestured to put it on the table. Uncle Longard, I think we should deploy Christina already. We are not as strong as before and we cannot use our defensive formation like before. We should also prepare for a full-scale war. Catherine spoke and stood up looking at the window. Seeing her lost in thought, a man beside the Longard sneaked in and quickly took out Nevin's documents and making an excuse, he walked out. After leaving the place, he took out the documents and burned them. Catherine doesn't need an asshole like you. Only I, Jefferson, who have reached the rank of master at the age of 27 and am a commander of the Black Corps, am qualified to stand by her side, not as an asshole like him. In the training ground there was a figure in the center lifting a rod. On the ends of the rods were tied 200 kilograms rocks. The veins on his arms bulged as he lifted the weights and squatted down. Following his notions, the soldier tried to keep up with him, but after a few rounds each of them fell one by one. As they looked around, only 2 people were able to keep up with that man's training routine. Max and Ben. Both of them are monsters in their eyes, but after Alex repeated lectures and explanations, they realized that neither of them were monsters nor geniuses, but were just too weak to keep up with the training that was devouring their lives. The training will begin with a 100-lap race around the castles using weighted bracelets, followed by strength training. After finishing this, they would practice with weapons and then study various formations and tactics. Even Mordek was dumbfounded by Alex's way of training and teaching and secretly thought that they had been blessed by the goddess of war, but Alex dismissed the claims and told them that it was a training regimen he obtained through a deal. This training was for those who aspired to become knights and overthrow kingdoms on their own. Although none of them have the talent of a knight, Alex was certain that if they managed to keep up with the training, each of them would become a knight. He will turn each of these peasants into weapons of destruction, but on the condition that they can complete the training. As Alex crouched down and climbed up with weights, she saw Raya approaching her with a worried expression. Alex frowned and pushed the weights away. Thud. With a small crash, The weights fell. Riaya gave Alex the towel to wipe away his sweat and began to speak. "My lord, we have received a message from the Western region. Count Hamilton has asked for help." "Hamilton?" Alex said, raising his eyebrows. Alex had heard of Hamilton. He was the greatest warrior in Nevin, besides Mordek. While Mordek lost his edge as he rotted away here, Hamilton grew ever sharper as he protected Nevin's western territory from falling by guarding it from the beasts and monsters of the vast forest. Plus, he's a proud fellow. If he weren't in dire straits, he wouldn't ask for help. When all the nobles cast aside their obligations, only Hamilton remained in the fortress faithfully fulfilling his duty. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelists. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 49, A King Set the Precedent, I too will take the test. In the office room, Alex tapped his armpit as he opened the letter and studied it. His expression changed slightly after studying it. Keeping it away, he looked at Mordek and Riaya and pondered for a moment before opening his mouth. "Uncle Mordek, Count Hamilton reported on the recent rise of beasts and monsters. It seems they are coming out of the forest in search of new lands. Is it the season of beast tides already?" Alex asked. Mordek rubbed his chin. "I don't think so. It hasn't been 5 years since the last beast tides occurred, and there is usually a 10 to 15 year gap between each successive tide where the beasts migrate out of the forest." Alex thought about Mordek's words and said, "Maybe this is monster riots, a season where monsters went on a rampage and killed everyone, but, my lord, the monster's restlessness rarely occurs," Riaya said and further explained, "Just like us, monsters and beasts also cultivate to become stronger, but sometimes, just like how humans suffer from a monorampage that drives them mad, sometimes the monster also loses the ability to control their monocore, they go mad. Killing anyone they encounter and losing themselves in bloodlust, is it a mass event?" Alex asked. "We don't know much about it," Riaya said, shaking her hands. Alex relaxed and thought about it. When she was at the goddess shrine, she came to know that just as humans are born with potential, every monster and beast is born with a certain degree of the core that displays the monster's potential. Red, orange, blue, violet, and white. White shows the most potential and red the least. Fortunately, Leo had a violet monocore, much to Alex's surprise. Unlike humans, monsters are born with the ability to sense and perceive mana. They accumulate it in their core to increase their ranks, and the problem that arises in accumulation or storage can cause the mana to go haywire in them and drive them crazy, losing control. Still, 1 or 2 monsters going haywire may be a coincidence, but these kinds of things happen en masse. Was it a coincidence that happened by chance, or was there something wrong within the forest? Or maybe there were chances of someone else tampering with things. But be that as it may, Alex had to make a trip to the west. "Maybe I can get stronger during the trip, and who knows, maybe I'll awaken mana if I put in some effort during the expedition," Alex muttered as he pondered something while tapping his armpit and getting lost in deep thought. "Uncle Mordek, I want you to gather all the soldiers tomorrow. I want to select 100 people to follow me to the western region," Alex said, snapping out of his thoughts. Mordek nodded and left. "Riaya, start preparing for my journey," Alex ordered. On the huge field stood 600 soldiers in an orderly fashion. All of them were newly recruited soldiers who had joined recently. Taking away the guard and the noble knights, Alex's forces consist of around 400 soldiers, and with this new addition, he would have around 1,000 soldiers. And if all the forces and soldiers scattered and stationed on the western borders are taken into account, Nevin currently had around 2,500 soldiers, which is still less compared to its neighboring kingdom. Slowly but steadily his forces will be increasing. Although he lacked in quantity, he was sure that their quality would soon surpass the others. Mordek looked at Alex and spoke in a worried tone. "Do we have to do this, Your Highness? Can't we just pick the good and talented ones?" Alex shook his head and said, "No, Uncle Mordek, do we have to do this?" "Let me ask you a question," Alex said and asked. "Riaya and Uncle Mordek, what do you see from here?" Mordek and Riaya narrowed their eyes and looked at the soldiers stationed neatly. "I see a group of young soldiers eager to go into battle." Mordek and Riaya gave quite similar answers. Alex shook his head and said, "Do you know what I see from here?" Riaya and Mordek's attention was drawn to Alex's words and they both shook their heads. "I see a colony of ants, a pack of dogs, a pack of wolves, a herd of bulls, and hidden among them many lions and wild beasts. Both Mordek and Riaya frowned upon hearing Alex's words and couldn't understand them. If it had come from someone else's mouth, they would have thought that person was talking nonsense. Alex looked at their confused look and smiled a little and began to explain. There are many types of people in this vast world. Some people are weak when fighting alone, but are stronger when fighting in a group and can overwhelm others when they join together en masse. Some are simply raging bulls who use strength to dominate, while others use their brains to make their enemies surrender. There are people who are willing to give their lives but don't have the strength to do so. Some use cowardly moves and tactics to survive but aren't cowards in any sense. Some whose mere presence is enough to turn the battlefield around, and some who are born with the instinct of the beast. After explaining, he stepped forward and spoke loudly, raising his voice. Every situation requires a different kind of person. On this adventure, I want to be accompanied by groups of lions and hunters who are willing to hunt and risk their lives at any time, but do everything they can to stay alive. Alex's voice echoed and spread throughout the area. I will select 100 people from among you who will accompany me on my journey to the west. For that, you will have to pass my test, Alex said and waved his hand. A man walked over and held a whip in his hand. In my first test, you will have to survive 50 blows of this whip without losing consciousness. You can scream and cry, but if you manage to survive all 50 lashes of this while holding on, you will move on to the next round. Everyone frowned and started murmuring. Alex looked at their expressions and decided to set an example. This is a test not only for you but for me as well, to prove to you that I am a capable lord who will always stand ahead of his soldiers. The first one to pass this test will be known, Alex shouted. Mordek and Ria's eyes widened when they heard Alex's words. Even Max and Ben were dumbfounded at this sudden revelation. After all, this wasn't mentioned in the script. Ria clenched her hand tightly, trying to stop herself from running towards Alex and stopping him. She just wanted to ask why? What need was there to do this? Alex smiled at Ria's expression and spoke with a serious expression. A king sets a precedent. If a king is a coward, his soldier will be a coward, while if a king is powerful and full of bravery, his soldiers will be strong and brave. Since you are being tested to accompany me, I will also prove that I am strong enough to lead you. Come and hit me with all your might. Don't try to be gentle with me or you'll be the next to be hidden. Unlike others, I will be getting 100 lashes, Alex said as he knelt down. The man took a deep breath and pulled the strap of the whip and attacked Alex. Whip! 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 The sound of the whip was heard and all the soldiers looked at Alex in shock. Soon their expression distorted as they saw their king being beaten as if he was a criminal and was being punished in front of everyone. Even though there was a pool of blood flowing down his back, there was no expression of pain or misery. Rather, he kept laughing as if it wasn't enough to make him scream. The blood of all the soldiers boiled as they looked at Alex with a newfound respect and admiration. Since when has there been a king who suffered like his soldiers? When has there been a king who went through the same trial as his soldiers? When has there ever been a king who stooped to be whipped in front of his people just to prove his resolve? None. There was no king who would swallow his pride to prove himself and endure the blows like their own king, who just to see their unbreakable spirit took the same test that they were all going to take. Chapter 50. A king set the precedent too. After being hit by the whips 100 times, Alex stood up without a pained expression. Rather, he was quite satisfied to see his soldiers looking at him in admiration. Not a single scream or yell escaped Alex's mouth throughout the torture session, and the smile that hung on his face when the whipping started still lingered on his lips. Ria slowly walked towards Alex and wanted to wipe the blood on his back, but Alex forbade her to do so. Ria's heart ached to see that Alex had been hurt. His clothes were torn and shredded, and many cuts and wounds appeared on his back, from which blood was oozing out. Alex smiled and patted Ria's head as the soldiers looked away at the public display of affection. Cough. Cough. Alex coughed and yelled, "Hey, stop wasting time and finish the exam quickly." At Alex's calls, the soldiers started to climb up and tried to test his tolerance level. The first one was knocked out in 3 lashes while the second was knocked out in 10. Of the first 50 soldiers, only 2 could endure it, but they lost consciousness as soon as it was over. Some screamed, some howled, some gritted their teeth to endure it, but they all failed. Mordek looked at the scene and thought to himself. He didn't know if he would be able to tolerate it if he were in their place. Tolerating pain depends on one's willpower and determination. There may be people who are born with a high pain tolerance capacity, but suppressing pain and getting up after being beaten is not something anyone can do. Even the strongest warriors who are at the top of the chain fail to get up after being defeated and lose their will. This is the test of your will and determination. After everyone passed it, only 70 managed to do so, but that didn't mean the others were disqualified. Everyone will have to take all the tests. In the next round, it was a test of courage. One will stand in one place and have arrows shot at him, and there are chances that the arrows will hide him. If one gives up before shooting 3 arrows, he will be disqualified. Alex was the first to take the test. He stood still as the first arrows passed by him, grazing his cheeks, but he was unlucky the second time as the second arrow hit his shoulder and the third hit his thigh. Even the blood was pouring out of his wound and the arrows were hitting him. He stood firm, steady and unmovable like a mountain. He didn't even move an inch from his spot. Alex pulled out the arrow and ordered the test to resume. Ria's eyes became moist when she saw that Alex was being too hard on himself. Beforehand, Alex had ordered that his shoulder and thigh be hit so that people would know that he was not lying and that there was a real risk of losing his life. Likewise, many were hid after Alex and many quit out of fear. Alex had arranged for some of them by providing them with sufficient compensation and a vacation beforehand. Out of every 30 people, he had placed one in the group to be hit by the arrow in a non-lethal location, and those locations where the arrows were supposed to be hit were sufficiently sheltered where only a small wound would appear, unlike Alex, who took the arrow for real. Many decided to retreat, many even wet their pants in fear, but still tried to hold on. Many screamed and ran away after the first arrow was drawn and shot at them, which grazed their skin. The next and final round was the sparring round. In this round, Mordek, Ben and Max would spar with these individuals, rotating their turns. If they couldn't hold on or got tired, Alex would take over. When Mordek started fighting, he simply blew them away with his simple punches or striking at his opportunity. Since all the people had just started, they didn't cover their tracks, and every time they attacked, they left their defenses open for their enemies to exploit. Alex was amused to see one of the soldiers trying to trade blows by receiving blows. Since he knew he couldn't defeat Mordek, he tried to drag him down with him. "Host, you shouldn't laugh at them. You use that technique too, huh?" Alex exclaimed in shock upon hearing the system's words. "I know, I just laughed seeing a version of myself in them. Every time I see them, I start comparing them and thinking about what they could have achieved if they had been trained by the goddess instead of me. Maybe some of them would have done better than me," Alex said with a sigh. "Host, you shouldn't underestimate yourself. I don't think many can go through that kind of nightmare without going insane. Even a strong metal, when struck repeatedly, breaks or crushes. But you weren't broken. Instead, you became a metal that tried to resist by grinding itself down and lasted long enough that the hammer striking the metal, instead of breaking you, the repeated blows heated the metal and refined it and molded it into what you are today." Alex was dumbfounded and embarrassed to hear the sudden praise for the system. Talking about it made him remember his training. The goddess of war would put him in a desert simulation and order him to run to the end of the desert barefoot on hot sand and carrying weight on his shoulders. The skin under his feet would peel off and at the end bloody footprints would appear. In training, all of his pain receptors were activated and he even felt hunger and thirst, but there was no food or water and he would reach the end in deep pain and thirst. In another scenario, while they were in combat, with every blow she would break a limb and bones, but he would not give in, and even when every part of his body was broken he would simply crawl around and use his mouth to bite her feet, and the goddess, instead of getting angry for biting her, would laugh and praise me. Every time Alex thinks about it, his soul starts to tremble in fear. Since he was in a soul state, he would not die even after being killed repeatedly 1,000, 10,000, 10 million. Alex couldn't even remember how many times he died and then came back to life only to restart the hellish nightmare, and all the while his fate would still be the same. He didn't know if another could do that, but Alex knew that he would never be the same after going through that, and his personality had turned into that of a madman, and a maniacal demon lurked inside of him that could come out at any moment if left unchecked. Alex felt a warm sensation and looked down to see Leo licking his wounds. "Hey, do you like my blood a lot?" Alex had already made an equal contract with Leo, as each of them would benefit from the other. If Alex grew stronger, Leo would gain a share of his strengths, and if Leo grew stronger, he would gain a share of his strength. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.